this during your years here or whatever, you know?
Okay.
I can speak to that just a little bit.
Yeah, let's let Rick go first.
We have had our utilities out there, and Alan and his crew cannot find a sewer tap for that. This particular sewer line is pretty deep. It is below the water table, which means that we have to go in and de-water in order to go down there and make the tap. And it does get very expensive. This is something that we ran up on last year. I don't know if the commission remembers or not, but we did have, there were 4 or 5 taps that were considerable cost. And in the past, the city had eaten that cost, but the commission had made a decision that we couldn't any longer do that, that it had to be the cost of the homeowner.
Yeah, we drafted a new process on that and put it into effect. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
The one last fall?
Yes.
Where, Drew, you might
No, we
remember.
talked about it. Did we draft a new process, or we just started enforcing what the code currently says?
We started enforcing what the code said.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
Oh, may I just say something? Well, if that's the case, I didn't know about it as a contractor. I've been working there for a long time. I did not know about that. I found out about that just recently, okay?
right,
So,
let us finish our discussion up here first, please.
Okay.
Rick, you had something?
Yeah, I've built, I'm building the 12th house that I've done in town, and the most recent one that I did, you're talking about the lateral line off the sewer, correct, Rick? So this is a vacant lot that's never been built on before, correct?
correct.
So there wouldn't be one in place because something else had been there. So I just had to do the same thing, and I'm a little bit higher elevation, but down on South Flagler Avenue, and it cost me like $4,800 to get a sewer tap done, which hadn't happened on other jobs prior. So it was new to me too, but I was informed about it because I was sitting up here, but that was coming up. But that was something that was made public, and I guess we didn't send letters out to every builder, but that's how it's going to have to be from this point forward, that if there wasn't already a lateral in place, then it's on the homeowner to, especially if they have to de-water. If it's just a regular connection and you're up at high ground, up on Central Avenue or something, and you tap right in, then your regular impact fees cover that. But if they have to hire a contractor to come in and de-water and all that, then that's an added cost to them.
I do understand that.
We also built in, correct me if I'm wrong, dude, that we built in a time delay on that when that passed in the fall, didn't we?
Nothing, I mean, there wasn't anything that passed. Your code said it in the fall. I think that you may have done, that you might have things in the pipeline that had already been approved. I don't remember, but you did not pass anything new. There was
Right.
nothing new adopted.
Yeah, I remember a time delay of some sort.
What we were trying to do, Eric, is inform the builder early on, at permitting time, that something like that may come up in that particular job site.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if that was the case, of course, before I made a contract with a customer, that would have been, the price would have reflect, that additional cost that it would take to do the job,
Understood.
To get the sewer tap in.
And that was discussed in length, and we were hoping that we could, minimize that issue with the builders by making them aware of it during permitting time.
Well, and I don't want to have this drag, so the process that we follow for the fees and who does what is all outlined.
Is what?
It's all outlined, it's all in black and white, and has he been able to review all that when you've been working with him? And
Probably not. No, I have not.
Because it's all outlined if it goes over a certain time, who pays what fees and all that.
Yes, it is. It is in our land development codes.
Okay. So that's something that y'all could work together on and make sure that you can make sure he has a copy of it or send it to him, one or the other.
Yes,
I think that'll answer some of the questions.
okay.
Does that work?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Just a suggestion. I know it's in our land development code and all, but it just seems a little troubling to me that, a homeowner gets to this particular point and they may have been aware in writing, but they're not aware. And I guess I'm suggesting that we should maybe make a little bit more of an effort to at least put something in writing to make people aware that this condition may exist. And I know that we're saying it's there, but it just seems unfair to an individual. Now, you can't speak right now.
No, we closed that part. It's just us talking.
What he's talking about
Sir?
should be when you, in the permit process, when you first.
I understand, but we're talking with him right now.
So I guess I'm just saying that, during a particular process, and if it's in there, then we should just make a little highlight it or something in order to make people a little bit more aware of it. And I'm not familiar with that particular process of what he's talking about right now, because I haven't been on here, well, I guess I haven't been here in a year. But I guess I'm just saying, if there was something we could do in order to take a little extra step to make people aware, even if it's a little note there, be aware that you may incur additional costs because of the location of your lot or something. It's just a suggestion I'm thinking of, just in the interest of new homeowners, because we do have a lot of new building going on, and I'd hate to be in a position where we're up here trying to discuss the same thing again. So I'm just, maybe we can, maybe we cannot, but it's just an idea.
At that, we did talk about that. There's, you have the folks in the pipeline and there'd be a information lag. And I remember that being discussed. And Rick, I don't know if you have a real good solution for that or not.
I thought we had something in our paperwork. If not, I can assure you it will be there starting tomorrow. We have been trying to bring everybody up to speed on this. As a matter of fact, when we had the issue, I believe it was a year ago, where we had 4 properties that were brought in, that we waived it on those 4, but took a strong stance that after that, they had to be paid.
Go ahead.
So, I know, Rick, you said you were aware of it, but that's because you felt it was
Obviously,
because of being up here. So, I buy a piece of property, I hire somebody to build me a house. That person goes into the building department, applies for whatever permits and things. At that point, is there something that goes through all the what may happen if kinds of things?
Here's the bad thing is 90%, and I believe Joe can confirm this, 90% of the time, before they apply for a permit, the contract is already signed. It behooves the contractors to come in prior to signing that contract, and asking where that sewer lateral is. I realize it's probably one of the last things that comes to their mind, but it's something that needs to be done. We don't know until we send our crew out. Alan with utilities, his crew goes out to verify where that lateral is, even if there is one. This particular one, unfortunately, does not have a sewer lateral, or nothing that we can find so far.
But I think there might be other issues as well in this
The
case.
challenge with this is what might come up in your build lists with this, like Rick said, he can add it, he can put something together. It's an issue that's popped up from time to time. There are so many issues that can pop up from time to time, depending on the project, that it's really, the code book is, in some respects. This is what might happen, read it. And if you're building a house, the law presumes you've read the code and understand it. And same with the building code. If you're a builder, you are presumed by the law to know what the building code says. You don't get to say, didn't know what the law said, not my fault. And it's harsh sometimes, but that is how the law interprets it. And I don't want to discourage the idea. It's a great idea. It's helpful for everybody. But at a certain point, it becomes impossible to list every possible thing that might happen on the job site.
I guess the only other thing I would add to some of the questions is, one thing we might want to look at, Rick, is when the paperwork was filed in relation to when this was going on. And I don't know what that answer is. So if for instance, if a permit was filed after this, then there's nothing, but if it was anything that was before in the pipeline or anything like that, of when this was going on or changing, there might be something to look at there. Does that make sense?
Again, nothing changed though.
Right.
The policy, it's not changed.
But the enforcement side did. Yeah. So that.
Drew said it very well by saying that a lot of times the builder has already signed a contract with a proposed, homeowner to build a house for a certain amount of dollars, and then they assume that the regular impact fees are going to cover all the connections, and it turns out that it doesn't when they go out and try and hook it up. So even the last couple of properties I bought, I made sure that I knew what I was faced with before I even bought the property. But because I'm aware of it. So it's just something that the builders will get up to speed on over time, and unfortunately got caught on the wrong side of signing that contract before he knew it.
Okay. Let's keep public comment going here. Anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to consent agenda, which is minutes for signed by organizational meeting of March 11, 2021, the regular meeting minutes of February 25th, 2021, and March 11th, 2021. Any questions, typographical? No, really? You notice I looked at you. Anything? Nothing?
I didn't see anything.
I didn't either.
All seemed to be in order.
All right, and we can open this up for public comment. Any comment on consent agenda item 7, which is minutes? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the Sinai organizational meeting of March 11, 2021, and the regular meeting of February 25th, 2021, and March 11, 2021.
Second, third.
All right, her first and second, all in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Heard none, motion passes. We'll move on to general business, and this is one of the changes we made. So the first item under general business will be staff comments, and it's 15A, which is not all the staff comments, but update regarding feasibility of reopening library, recommendations from health department, emergency management, and safety officers about special events. And Chief Downey, would you like to go first on this one? Okay, absolutely. Come on up. If you could just introduce yourself.
I will, of course. I'm Melissa Parrish, your librarian at the Flagler Beach Library. Let me start by offering congratulations to Mayor Johnston and Commissioner Cooley, and saying right off the bat, I'm here with a plan for reopening the library building, but the commission and I haven't had a chance for a conversation since the world turned upside down last year. There are some things I'd like to say before I lay out the plan, and I'll be happy to answer any questions I can afterward. I think there may be a perception that the library has been closed. And while the building has been closed to public admittance, we were only fully closed last year from March 23rd until May 12th, when we began offering pickup service to our residents. It was 34 days total that we were closed. So what have we been doing for the last year, you might ask? We've been working hard to increase the database of our library, which holds roughly 20,000 volumes total. The catalog started with about 2,300 books. Today, you can browse through 14,920 of our books by way of the city website. It was important to us to give people a way to browse. It's a work in progress, but we've seen so many people interacting with it in a positive way, even some of those internet holdouts. We also post the list of new books every week and have a separate list of all our audio titles. We've expanded our ebook collection and got more people using our Access 360 app so they had access to books without having to leave home. Our goal has always been to distribute books to any resident who asked, whether we've known them for years or they're new to town. If you can prove residency, you can get books. Since May, we've been checking books out for anyone who lives within city limits and a number of people from outside city limits. To give you a point of reference before closing, we generally check out about 1,400 books a month. We hit the ground running with pickup service, averaging 490 titles a month between May and September of last year, and we've been averaging just over 515 books a month since. People have been requesting books by phone or by email, and we've been known to walk around the library with a phone in our hands searching for the next perfect book. We are currently serving 200 patrons on a regular basis. Creating the database also includes handling all of our books. Lost things have been found, sad, worn books have been repaired, and we've had the pleasure of getting to know our collection better as a result. I've had the chance to review our ordering processes. I negotiated free shipping with our primary distributor and reviewed the arrangement we had with our large print publisher. Our commitment for large print books was for multiple titles per shipment to get free shipping, including books people never read by authors you've never heard of. And if you aren't familiar with the pricing, large print books tend to run about $30 a title, where hardcover bestsellers, James Patterson's, all of those, are more about $18 or $19 a piece. By changing the commitment and by ordering ahead so we have the right number of titles per order, we've maintained free shipping while getting the authors our members like and making better use of our budget. I've also been able to look at who's reading what on our electronic platform, which leads to better purchases. I was able to update the information on our library homepage, which was sorely needed. And we've had a link to the Florida Electronic Library added to that, which is a tremendous resource. Their archives are incredible. Even with our old school way of doing things, we've got new systems to keep track of who has what book, especially valuable with a waiting list. And we have lists for popular authors, so we can keep track of what book is next in a series to keep the stories in order for people. We've introduced our readers to new authors and keep track of their likes and dislikes. The service has been highly personalized, and that's the way we like it. We enjoy our readers and do our best to keep them happy. We're also invested in keeping them safe. In addition to quarantining books, we have a disinfection system for when we check books back in, and they get one more treatment before they go out. No book is ever handled by a person without a mask. We've been wearing masks since before we shut down. The only time they're off is when we're eating lunch. We take the process seriously, not only for our own health, but also for our patrons, the majority of whom are older and therefore more vulnerable. The vaccine process will undoubtedly be a game changer, but we're very attached to our people and want to keep our community safe. I know there's been a question about donations. If you can see our storage closet, truly it is stuffed from floor to ceiling with boxes of books. We need to have a book sale. It's not time for that either. But I always encourage people to ask. We've received a lot of donations over the last year. Children's books are always welcome. As for current books, we have one patron in particular who likes to buy all of the offbeat book club titles that the celebrity book clubs are into. She reads them, donates them, and they go right onto the shelves. These are often interesting books, but I would hesitate to buy them because barely anyone reads them. Thanks to the donations, our community gets the chance. Since we closed last year, we've entered 140 books into the collection that were donated at a value of $2,179.64. We've continued to renew and issue new library cards throughout closure, 286 total. When it seemed like our readers were comfortably back into the routine of picking up and returning books on a regular schedule, we reinstated fines. The amount was decreased to give people a break, and children's books are half the fine of adult books. We will also always make allowances for extenuating circumstances. We've been available by phone or at the door during our posted business hours throughout the last year, even when half of America was taking Zoom meetings in their pajamas. All that being said, our plan going forward and given the ongoing pandemic is as follows. And please understand, we had a volunteer for every day of the week before this whole thing started. 2 have since moved away. Other than one sure bet, honestly, I don't know who's going to feel comfortable coming back. So our plans are based on the 2 of us, myself and Marge, who's back there, plus 1 helping hand here and there. We propose opening the doors between 10 and 2, Tuesdays through Saturdays. This gives our community 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week, to browse or to use a computer during our peak hours. Following CDC guidelines, which are still recommended, masks will be required and hand sanitizer will be placed throughout the library for patrons' use. Social distancing is still important, even with more of us being vaccinated. Floors will be marked, and we would allow 10 people maximum into the library at a time. Computer keyboards and mice will be covered with disposable plastic coverings, which will be changed between users. All returns would be directed to the drop box, which we're currently emptying with precautions twice a day. We would likely need to do that more often. Returned books will continue to be quarantined for a period of 72 hours. When they're ready to be checked in, all books are wiped with a disinfectant cloth and sprayed lightly. All books to be checked out will be wiped with a disinfectant cloth before they're sent out. This has been our standard operating procedure since the beginning of pickup service. While there are lots of folks who will be thrilled to get inside, we know there will also be some who aren't comfortable doing that, so we plan to continue our pickup service. We've been offering pickup service for 216 days now, with increased access to information online and willing staff ready to take calls. We continue to get new books, both physically and online, and maintain reservations so people can get hold of the latest titles. Public restrooms would be available between 10 and 2, sanitized nightly by our maintenance crew, and no group or events would be scheduled at this time. In closing, here's what we know, and we know even more because Mr. Steiner was here. Thank you. The virus is ongoing. Our safety team and Mr. Snyder have the statistics. My simple way of gauging where we are locally has been by looking at the daily numbers regarding new cases and how many hospital beds are taken by COVID patients. It doesn't seem like we're out of the woods yet. So our approach is a cautiously optimistic one. Limiting hours would allow us to keep up with the increased demand for quarantine and sanitization, with more books being checked out and returned. We would continue to be at the library during business hours to answer phones, distribute pickup orders, and make copies for our customers. We've done our best in strange times to give our neighbors some sense of normalcy. And I have to give credit to Marge, our assistant librarian, who's been a great partner in the process with her ridiculous work ethic and practical ideas. I believe this plan will expand on that feeling of normalcy, but I will always put our community's safety first. We can certainly revisit the plan in a month and decide the best course of action as we work toward a full opening in the future. And by the way, if any of you ever want to come by, come by. I'll show you everything that we're doing. You're welcome. And you're more than welcome to take a look at what we have kind of set up. Thank you for listening.
Melissa, you didn't say when you were going to start
Oh, I'm sorry. That's important. We were thinking of Tuesday.
this coming.
This coming Tuesday. We've been busy beavers this week.
Any questions, Commissioner Mealy?
No.
Any other questions up here? Comments?
Sounds great. Nobody's, nobody had any way of knowing what you ladies are doing in that place, so it's nice to know that you've really.
We've been trying.
May I comment just briefly?
Yes, sir, come on up.
Thank you so much.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I am, since COVID began, two people that I've been in consistent contact with throughout has been Police Chief Downey and Fire Chief Bobby Pace. And they contacted me last week to just get my input on this fabulous plan that you've put together. This plan is spot on. It takes into account indoor activity, the right public health measures, the mask wearing, the social distancing, the limiting of people, and I applaud you for doing the right thing. Thank you very much.
That is a very robust plan, and just for clarity, so your hours that you're open are 10 to 2, Tuesday through Saturday, and then you are going to keep the regular hours for just your operation and pickup and phone calls,
The
right?
one difference that would have to be made, because we can't do a 10-hour day, would be on Tuesdays. Our experience with Tuesdays, and we have Tuesdays for the, for people who can't come during daytime. But generally, we are in a ghost town between 5 and 7 p.m. So temporarily, while we're doing this, in order for the hours to be the same every day so people aren't confused when the heck they can go to the library, we would make the hours the same throughout the week. So it would be 10 to 5 from Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturday. And then we'll do what we need to do after 2 o'clock and get out of there when we can.
All right, so now I'm confused.
Well,
The regular services that you
Oh, so the regular service, I'm sorry, I didn't address the question. Anytime, right now, what we've been doing is when the library is open, from 10 to 5, those are the normal business hours, say Wednesday through Friday, we'll answer the phone between that time. We take questions, we take, email and telephone requests, pickup service. So pickup service would continue throughout the whole day. The only thing would be that the doors will be open between 10 and 2, and that will also give us an opportunity to be sanitizing and taking things in carefully and everything that we do, because it takes a lot of time. So that gives the public 4 hours of access. We can get some computer usage, which I know has been difficult for some people. And another thing just to put out there, since the phones went digital, we are no longer able to send faxes for people. And I don't know where in the city they can send faxes. They can here? All right. Send some people to you. That's great to know. Just because, when they hear Staples or UPS store, they go, oh, you got to cross the bridge. All right, good.
okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mayor.
First of all, thank you. I have a avid reader preteen that loves to browse books, so she's going to be very excited to hear that the library's opening. You had said you were going to revisit extending the hours after a month. Would you be coming back in during staff comments, or we would just get a notification that you were extending?
Whatever you're more comfortable with, I'm fine coming back in. Just to let you know how it goes. I mean, we don't really know in practical everyday terms how it's going to go, and we also don't know what the numbers are going to do as far as the virus, because, we're trying to keep an eye on all those things. So I'd be happy to come back in a month.
Okay.
We can do the comments and see where we are.
Sounds great.
As a suggestion, I would say just a monthly update. We might go a month and decide that we don't want to increase hours, for the time being. And but this is a very nice plan.
Thank
I
you.
can tell you put a lot of time into it. And Bob, there's no gaps there as far as safety goes, and we're good. And staff, okay. Yeah, a very well done plan. And just for clarity, so the library will be open 10 to 5, Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 2 Saturday. And then doors will be open 10 to 2 each one of those days.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Sunday, Monday, the library is closed, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear.
And then when we have holidays generally, so the holiday falls on a Monday, we are generally closed on the Saturday before we observe it on the Saturday because we're closed on the Monday anyway.
Okay, any other? Commissioner Phillips?
Melissa, you talked about lack of volunteers. Are you saying you have one volunteer currently?
I have 3 total.
Okay.
I have to get in touch with the other 2.
Okay.
I know that I had someone on deck who had a background check already, and so we're going to see if that's something that we can follow up on. I do have, of course, a list of people who are interested.
Okay, that was my question.
But I'd be happy to take more names.
Okay,
Because
great.
you know how that works. When someone gives you their name, and then a month later, they're doing something else. And especially retired people, they have the busiest schedules.
Right, no, I'm sure. Yeah, I was wondering if you could put on your website, volunteers needed or looking for volunteers, if that would help.
It might.
Yep.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
No, just thank you for working out such a great plan.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is very nice.
Good, great, thanks. I had help from our safety team. They're smart.
All right, and so that takes care of the library. Then we have a couple other pieces of this. We have small events and we have the big event. Chief, I would say you want to cover small events first? And Bob Snyder, we will also need your input on this as well as far as small events. And just for, I guess for the sake of conversation, we could just start with saying small events are 100 people or less.
100 people or less, and Matt Downey, Chief of Police, City of Flagler Beach. Before I start that, I want to commend Melissa and Marge for all their help on putting that together.
It's a fabulous.
And that's why I wanted to defer to them to come first, so that you could hear firsthand that our librarians are passionate about exactly what they do, and to kind of get the misnomer that the library was closed, because they've been doing a lot of work. And there was a lot of planning that went into that, and as always, Bob Snyder, since this whole thing started, has been by our side, as well as Chief Pace. So the new wrinkle that came out today is the issuance of the order by the governor, effective, was it April 5th? So the 30 days, that's one of the reasons that we came up with the 30 days for the library. I'd like to see what it looks like in 30 days. We knew that there was going to be a spike for spring break. We knew there was going to be a spike after bike week. That's why the numbers are going up. I'm not opposed to opening up those events, 100 people or less. One of the things that really does scare me about that is if we cap it at 100 and people put in event permits, are they going to be absolutely truthful about how many people that they're expecting? They're going to put in 100 and 1,000 show up. They're not going to be.
There's going to be no social distancing. Right now, the businesses in our town, at least the business owners that I've talked to, are doing very, very well. Record numbers for bike week, record numbers for spring break. The economy's coming back to our city, and I'm glad that it's happening. So the small events, I'd like to review when we review the plan for the library, and we can always ramp that up, or in 30 days if it's not working, we can always defer that. So I'd like to, two meetings from now, readdress the small events, and then the bigger event we can talk about as far as the issues. Again, I'm extremely proud that we're number one in the state as far as the amount of per capita for infections. To be at the top of 67 counties in a state this big, which relies on tourism, is incredible. And as Bob said, that didn't occur by happenstance. It occurred by people being safe. It occurs by your safety officer, and Bobby and I are side by side every day. When we talk about being safe, if we're going to be criticized for being safe, we need a call. When we raise our hand as public servants to protect and serve our communities, that's not something that I or Bobby or any of our folks take lightly. So I would defer 30 days for small events, and if we can open them up. A tough one is, I keep getting phone calls about First Friday. How do you go on First Friday?
Well, and I don't think First Friday would fall under a small event. First
No.
Friday's
No.
never ad hoc.
Right, you're looking at more like 750 to 1,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think those type of events could be super soaker events that we would regret. Smaller events, absolutely, 30 days, I think we could look at that, especially if the population is getting vaccinated. I think that's a big thing, is the vaccinations. One of the most at-risk portions of our city staff are our lifeguards. Our lifeguards are between 16 and 22 years of age. If they haven't gotten vaccinated and our lifeguards get sick and they're out 2 weeks, what happens to our beaches? They're unprotected for 2 weeks. I think we get vaccinations for 18-year-olds. Mayor, if you want to work on a campaign to get the younger population that thinks because they wear Under Armour, they're bulletproof, they're not bulletproof. Right? When we were 18 or 20, we didn't think we needed those type of things or vaccines. But at 57, I'm glad I got mine. We need to relay that to the younger folks. Maybe Sydney can put like vaccines in the cupcakes. Give out COVID cupcakes, right? COVID vaccine cupcakes. So, Chair, I would like to defer 30 days for the smaller events where we can have a bigger gauge on when the numbers go down, then look at opening them up.
Okay, just a question before we open up. You talked about a wrinkle of the governor and something about the 30. I wasn't following what that was.
The vaccines, where they're going to start giving vaccines to people 18 and older.
Okay, that's what you're.
That doesn't start until April the 5th. So if we wait till the end of the month, we can see how many, folks in that age group after 18 have gotten at least vaccines. So that maybe we can get to a threshold where we can say, okay, now whatever the population's can do something about us. But maybe with, our 18 to 40 crowd is 30% vaccinated. Well, then that's great. Then we need to start moving towards events that we can back. But I think the numbers will dictate, where we should go from there.
Okay, I'll just run down the line here. Questions or comments about deferring small events for 30 days, Mayor Johnson?
30 days puts us in May. They could we would reevaluate, and then people could start to fill out permits at the beginning of May.
30 days will put us at the end of April.
End of April. How long would it take to have a permit approved for somebody?
For a small event?
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're not on vacation or anything, I can turn it around usually within 3 days. Sometimes same day. Depends on how in-depth the application is, what is it they're asking, what city services do they need.
Okay. I was thinking like surf contests, outdoor events, or smaller type
Right.
of thing.
And I'm not going on vacation.
No,
Okay.
and
I'll be around to proof events, and if I was on vacation, Captain Blanchett is willing.
Okay.
a surf contest usually generates more than 100 attendees as well.
No comment, no more.
Commissioner Bryan?
I think 30 days is a good idea, and as Mr. Snyder and the others have said, we'll know and have a pretty good gauge in 30 days as to where we're going, because a lot more people are getting the vaccine, and that's going to help a lot. It gives us a very good indication of where we're going from that point on. So I think it's a very good idea to have it in 30 days.
Okay, Commissioner Bellinger?
I can't do anything but defer to our experts who kept us safe and made us number one. So who can argue with those that know? So I'm perfectly good with it.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I totally agree. Information is a valuable thing. Yesterday I went to Publix, which is where you meet everybody, and an 18-year-old that most of us know, lived family street from Commissioner Bryan. Said, so when are we having, or why aren't we having, or are we having the July 4th parade? And I started to discuss the pros and cons with him. And then I remembered that you had forwarded that wonderful email from Bob Snyder. So I made Kevin read it. And he was like, oh, that gave me a lot to think about. Because as an 18-year-old, a very outgoing young man, he just wanted a parade. and he didn't really care what I had to say. But when he read Bob Snyder's email and he read the whole thing, it was a long one, I think I turned him around a little bit. So information is always valuable, even creativity.
I'll reinforce it testing tomorrow.
Commissioner Phillips.
No, I think we're trending the right way, which I'm really happy about. We're pleased talking about it, and I'm very excited to get small events going again.
Absolutely, and just to give you a little thumbnail, if you think back to a year ago yesterday, I put out a news release that a Flagler Beach officer contacted COVID. He was the first law enforcement officer in the 7th Judicial Circuit. That was a year ago yesterday. We're still not out of the woods, but to use a football analogy, we started at the 20-yard line. We're headed in the right direction. What I don't want us as a city to do is get close to the goal line and fumble.
It's a question. We're not saying we will approve events in 30 days. We're saying we're going to look at it again.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am. And like Penny said, we can turn, if at that point we think it's, amenable to move forward, to start looking at events and improving them. We talk every day. And when we get something from Penny, a turnaround on the application can be as easy, or as long as 3 days, it could be 1 day. Better call our schedules.
One more question.
And, go ahead, Mayor.
You made the comment regarding the lifeguards. Are all of our lifeguards over 18 so they could be vaccinated, or any of them, they're 16 so they
Some of them
will
are in
be?
high school, so they don't fit that 18. So
Okay.
Tom gets usually, Tom's lifeguards, he usually has about a 6-year span for them. Usually gets them around juniors in high school, then they graduate, they do 2-3 years of college, and then they graduate, and then they move on. So that's where you get that 6-year, that's where that really vulnerable part of our lifeguards is. Because some of them may not fit that criteria, but we have some senior lifeguards being 22, 21 years old, and his senior staff, so that's really important. Keep the lifeguards on there, because they're ultimately, they're keeping our beaches really well safe.
Okay.
And
I was just going to ask Bob if there's a way that we could say these lifeguards are first responders
We do have within the lifeguards, there's a half a dozen of them or so that are EMTs, paramedics, or nurses. And being that they are frontline workers, we've already run them through the process. And that's more of our officer corps of those folks. But Chief Downey did make a good point. We're vulnerable with our younger folks. So Tom's got a good plan in place, but just to let you know, there have been some that have been vaccinated already. If they did not meet that criteria of being a first responder, they have not, the other ones.
All right, but even once the 18-year-olds can get vaccinated, is there some way we can twist some arms with somebody?
Well, I would think, Bob, that we could reach out to Ms. Ryan. If we're doing the 18-year-olds, the home health, Flagler County Home Health, Karen Prather, she has been very helpful as far as making trips to the firehouse, coming here locally to do it. So if we had the guards lined up at the fire station, it's conceivable to think that we could line something up like that when we get to that date.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, ma'am.
And my thoughts on the topic are, I think this is a good first step. I think now we have a forward-looking vision. It makes sense to hold for 30 and then reevaluate with the mindset of, at some point we will be moving forward. I myself, suffering from COVID fatigue, 100%, and ready to get life back. But I think it's a very good first step. I agree with it. And so, Penny, our 30-day meeting would be when?
April. I don't have that. Just give right.
So we'll plan for second meeting in April, and we'll take a evaluation on that. That'll also be when we do a library update. Unless if you're okay with that, all at the same time. And then Bob, we would love to have you. In your guidance.
It's the 22nd.
So we're gonna do April 22nd. We'll plan on that. Any other questions or comments about small events?
Chair, just real quick, with regards to the library, I started working on a draft for a news release, to go out to the local media as well as I'll post it on our social media. Would you like it to come from either yourself as the chair or Mr. McFadden?
Mr. McFadden.
Perfect. I'll take care of that tomorrow.
As the gentleman running the city.
Just wanted to clarify so I get the name right when I put out the news release.
Yeah, or the mayor. I mean, one, not me. Next item is going to be discussion on 4th of July, or would you like to, I have a lot of heartburn about deferring a discussion on 4th of July because it gets to the point where you can't discuss it anymore.
No, but I'd like Bob to talk about, where that could lead to, and then, I'll be more than happy to come up and talk, and I'd like to get Bob's feelings on 4th of July.
Okay, so let's talk about 4th of July. This is a very large scale event. Total attendance in the evening is between 50 and 60,000. Is that correct, Chief?
It's hard, we don't have a dot matrix where we can count everybody, but there's a lot of people in here, at least 40,000.
Good. And Bob, we need your guidance on this.
You bet, Commissioner Cooley. Thank you again for this opportunity. So what I brought with me is the COVID-19 latest guidance for organizing large events and gatherings from the CDC, which we support, obviously, as a Department of Health. And basically, the guidance, the key points are avoid large events and gatherings when possible. Consider the level of risk when deciding to host an event, and promote healthy behaviors and maintain healthy environments to reduce the risk when large events and gatherings are held. So the basic message here is you need to take a lot of things into account, in which each event is different, and should be considered on its own merits, like the smaller events. What a great decision that you all just made regarding smaller events, because you've taken public health measures into account, because you've already talked about possibly limiting the attendance, social distancing, spread out. If an event is held indoors and the ventilation isn't all that great, there comes the importance of wearing a mask. But gosh, large events, that's different, especially when we have 40,000 people that come into town to see the fireworks, and be here all day. I'm thinking of the parade. As a Flagler Beach Rotarian for years, I was involved in helping to orchestrate and implement the planning for the parade and being here throughout the whole day. So I know what it's like. I'm thinking of the parade where people are shoulder to shoulder, nose to nose, in close proximity in a congested space. Well, that's different than a smaller event. I'm thinking of the 40,000 people that here in town to watch the fireworks, which I have done numerous times. It's a small, congested space, comparatively speaking. And there's risks to that. And I know that none of us, including yourselves, want to put yourself in that position of possibly causing harm or just allow it to happen. It's risky. Now, let's say by the end of June, 200 million Americans have been vaccinated. And let's say that, just a wonderful dream to think about right now. Let's say that all of the RT value, what we call the R0, that is a way to measure transmission of the virus from an epidemiological standpoint. Or let's say the positivity rate, including the R0, is way below 1. Right now the positivity rate is, I checked, it's 12% for us here in Flagler County because of what has just occurred relative to where we are with cases that I talked about earlier. But let's say all of that is reversed and there's hardly anyone in the hospital with COVID, maybe 1 or 2 patients. The indicators for transmission are just way below what they have been, and come close to the first 1 to 2 weeks of COVID a year ago, March. then maybe we can reevaluate lickety split, right? And quickly get a parade organized or even talk about the fireworks. But that is not what we're seeing right now with respect to what's happening. I sure hope that this recent surge and uptick is a blip and that, it diminishes over the next few weeks. So that would be a great thing, and hope that we are on our way to herd immunity. And let's say if we've reached it locally by the end of June. Is it likely? Probably not. But is it possible? Yes. Those are my general feelings about large events. I like to hear about events like what the Corvette Club has put together. They're taking everything into account in a very responsible way to just mitigate transmission of the virus. The social distancing, the limiting of the number, mask wearing. Same thing here with City Hall, opening up City Hall possibly. Something that I think we should talk about at some point, or you discuss and talk about at some point. But large gatherings, that's a whole different story.
Chief, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Snyder. And if you look back last month, two major events, outdoor sporting events occurred in the United States. The Super Bowl and the Daytona 500. Both outdoor events. If you watch the Super Bowl, watch Tom Brady win his 7th ring, most of the seats were filled with cardboard cutouts. We don't have the opportunity to put cardboard cutouts of people for a parade over a 10-block area that are 5 or 6 people deep, as well as the fireworks. And then the second was the Daytona 500. On the front grandstand that holds over 100,000 people, or only 20,000 people, in the 2.5-mile oval. In my opinion, the parade and the fireworks are not a good idea for the show. I think we can reevaluate for maybe looking at it for Labor Day as the vaccinations go up, but the planning that goes in to putting on a complete 4th of July really should have already started, and we're way behind the curve. Not only the curve in the planning, but the curve on getting past where we need to be as a society with this pandemic. So that's my recommendation. I won't have the Chief Pace come out because I already know he could reject this.
And, Tom, I saw you had another comment.
Yeah. Okay, I want to just share with you 2 examples of events that have occurred in our community that were done very well with public health measures taken into account. And there was no aftermath effect, there was no super spreader indication at all. David Ayers with Flagler Broadcasting planned Rockin' on the Runways. It was early fall. And 350 people were there. So they limited the attendance because in the past it has been a lot more. And mask wearing was required. Social distancing was put into place. It was held outdoors. They even socially distanced the 2 bands that played up on stage. And so what David did was he went ahead and they set up, it was a circle. And each circle was 6 feet apart. And chairs were set inside those circles. And I've seen this before at large parks in urban communities. And basically everyone was asked to bring their mask, again, limited numbers. Everyone stayed as a family unit inside these circles. And the mantra was, stand up, mask up. So when you went to the restroom or went to the concession stand, everyone was asked, don your mask. Or if you're going to be mingling family to family, wear your mask. And that's exactly what happened. Another example, Amy from the Flagler Auditorium. She has asked our input, and we worked together, as we did with David, on planning larger events. And again, there was no indication that there was any large spike or surge associated with those events. So I just wanted to make the point that even beyond smaller events, if it's done safely with public health measures involved, even a little bit larger events can take place.
Elected officials, we got a recommendation on the table, to either not do or postpone, 4th of July festivities until Labor Day. We'll start with Mayor Johnston. Mayor Johnston, we got questions or thoughts?
Thoughts are, I have planned a parade with help from Bob. It's a lot of work to put in overnight. It should have already been started, so postponing is definitely a wise choice.
Mr. Brown.
I suggest we wait until next year to have a big 4th of July parade and celebrate it. So we postpone it this year.
Mr. Bellman.
I can't do anything but agree. Hopefully, things will be tame enough that we can have a parade, holiday parade. So I'm sure there'll be lots of people there for that.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I agree. Putting it off to September, I don't think is enough. We might want to think about maybe a Christmas parade that doesn't involve the fireworks. And, but again, to see in a little while that December we would have to start planning it, I don't know, Tuesday in September or August.
Minimum 2.5, 3 months. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, that's for December, so if we wait until September to see if we thought it was viable, that would be my suggestion, that we might think about having Christmas parade, or whatever other events, but to put off the 4th of July, so.
Commissioner Phillips.
I respect both Bob's, and I definitely respect Chief as well. And there's no way I'm going to disagree with your comments. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely off the table for now.
And my thoughts are the same for the 4th of July and the parade. What I would suggest, if y'all are okay with it, is to just do a discussion. We can put it on an upcoming agenda we'll look at Labor Day, back up 90 days, and we'll just put on an agenda to have a discussion about anything potential that we might decide we want to do for Labor Day. Because that's going to be sometime, June? So we have.
I don't think we have enough time to plan for it anyway.
Yeah.
For Labor Day. I mean, the chief goes through a lot of work to try and lay out his grid for getting people out of here and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of planning.
There's a lot of planning involved. I don't think that it's fair to them to put that pressure on.
Thoughts, Chief, is 90 days not enough time to plan anything as far as Labor Day goes?
It depends on what you want to do for Labor Day. If you want to have fireworks at night, it's a totally different dynamic. And, if we don't have a parade and we don't have fireworks for the 4th of July, that doesn't mean that 25,000 people still will come up to the city of Flagler Beach. Because we're not going to have people walking down A1A in a parade. They're still going to come. Flagler Beach is its own field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. God built it, and they're coming. So when it comes to that, yeah, I think it would all depend on what you would want to do. If you want to do the fireworks on a Monday night, and Labor Day is in September. It's September 6th. It's 2 months after the 4th of July. So, a great suggestion is have a really big blowout for Christmas maybe. And again, that's, when it comes to that, as someone had talked about COVID fatigue, the city staff has COVID fatigue too. We've been working through all this stuff together, and I think we as a nation are all fatigued. But I think we can give up the ship now. I think now's the time where courage and it's time to endure. So, yeah, I'm all in favor of it. And I know one of the events that I talked to Commissioner Phillips about was, events that, are fundraising type events. And I think we as a staff can help those folks, like the museum. And like Bob said, they had an event out at the airport. That's a great event. If we wanted to have Kathy Wilcoxon cheer at the pier, move it to the runway, and make it cheer at the pier, make the pier or the runway look like a pier. Right. So that they could have an event at a place where you can socially distance, because those events are ticketed events. You can limit the amount of attendees that come to those events. You say fireworks, you're gonna have a tank of gas. Flagler Beach it is. Right, so again, as a board, if you want to scrap Labor Day weekend again, it's still gonna be a 3-day weekend. It's gonna be bad.
Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, with the COVID fatigue, I know that how hard it is to concentrate on social distancing. The other day, Debbie and I went to a luncheon at the Hill, my first time doing that kind of thing. So people I haven't seen in over a year, except on the screen. First instinct is to hug, gotta pull back, can't hug. But your old instincts and your old ways of behaving just come right back. And so when we're in the entranceway or the pre-meeting area, which is kind of narrow, we were not 6 feet apart at all. It wasn't bad once we were in the dining room. They had cut down how many people at each table. The tables were further apart than usual. But that pre-meeting area, that was not safe. I had a good time. I enjoyed it, but it was not going to be safe. So you have to remember that you're going to put people at an event, and they're going to see their old friend that they haven't seen in forever, and they're going to run right up to each other. And you got to remember human nature too. I'm guilty of it myself, and I don't know if you have that same reaction.
Okay, so I'm hearing a consensus, 4th of July, no, fireworks and parade, Labor Day, no fireworks and parade. And what I would suggest is then in August, we just put on a August agenda to just have a discussion on where we're at, just in general. And as far as large scale events go. Does anybody have any final thoughts on that? No questions?
That's perfect for me.
Do we have a consensus to do that?
Yes. Chair, I do have one question. I know last year there was a shuttle bus provided for 4th of July. Is that something that will be provided this year as well?
Is it even needed, Chief?
I did it last year because we had done it for the previous years, and I got vilified on social media for doing it. So my recommendation is no, it's to not do it. It's to not do it.
And there's a pretty good cost savings on that.
No.
And there is a cost savings with not doing it, but I didn't want to take away a service, and then it wasn't very well utilized last year. But I didn't want to take a service away from the community without telling them in advance.
Last year, used.
When the 4th of July comes back, that will come back with it, because that program was extremely successful. And I just want to commend Dr. Bickle and Bob Snyder for all their help in the last year, because we don't do anything without them. And, Bob calls us his partners, and he deemed my junior epidemiologist. It's not something that I ever thought I'd be called because of my career as a police chief. But thanks, Bob, for voting confidence.
No. The only other piece of anything that involves events or buildings or anything in the city is the question about City Hall. Chief, did you want to do a 30-day wait? Did you have a position on that, or do we have?
I think the safety team can have a recommendation for you at the next meeting. And where myself and Chief Pace, Liz, will sit down with the City Hall staff and come up just like we did with the library. We'll be at the next meeting.
And commissioners, any thoughts on that?
That's perfect.
Any consensus on that? So thank you.
We will come back in 2 weeks with recommendations just like we did with the library.
All right, that was a big item out of the way.
Commissioner, may I just one more comment, please?
Go ahead, Bob, before you roll.
Thank you, real quick. Thank you so much. I
I just want to
I
say
think
that.
the chief turned that mic off.
You all are an inspiration to us, and I was discussing with Dr. Bickle, our medical director, why I was coming tonight. And so I just want to thank you for your transparency and just your questions and taking on just a very, very important topic. He and I would like to put together a document that may help going forward. And it would be, our summary and talking points for you and recommendations, just guidance on how to go about safely going beyond planning small gatherings. As we are vaccinating more people, we hope that this most recent surge is minimal and short-lived. And so we like to put together a document that here are the things that we recommend you consider in planning events, like the example I gave, rocking at the runways, or maybe a surfing competition that you used to have in the past, or just any event that you are inquisitive about and are wondering about. So we're going to give you a document that you can use going forward.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, a very large thanks for coming out, and I know it wasn't a ton of notice, and just getting put on the spot and answering the tough questions and your guidance for the last year. And it's nice when we can all work together, and I've seen in other areas where it gets highly politicized and very sensational, dramatic, and it's not favorable to anybody. And I think we have a good plan moving forward, and can't thank you enough.
We are partners.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Before we leave this item, one of the things that Mr. Snyder brought up, and I think we have some gentlemen here to address it, when we talked about large events and small events, but I guess some of the things that they're talking about here is maybe a medium size with the Corvette Club, which we had already made some recommendations that I think we addressed it.
Well, we kind of did. And correct me if I'm wrong, we were going to wait 30 days to address anything and check with the latest data.
Okay.
Am I understanding that correctly? So, concerning the Corvette Club, unfortunately, we won't have an answer tonight, but we can look at it in 30 days. And please jump in if I'm misspeaking.
Yeah, no, and Bob's gonna give us an outline that we can follow, then I think that we would have something concrete.
Okay, I just want to make sure the answer is
Right.
because that
Right.
consider it.
Our planning starts now for October.
And then,
We'll delay it.
Okay.
yeah, and I'm pretty, and I think 30 days is reasonable for all parties. I hope that works for you all. We all want everything to move forward as good as possible and keeping everybody safe. So that'll be our plans. We'll
Okay,
discuss
I
that
agree. I
30
just want to
days.
make sure everyone's clear as to what their guidelines are.
In 30 days, we will address that.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you typically do every year.
All right, we can't do a whole lot back.
Can you come up to the microphone, sir? It's very hard for me to capture
This
this.
is part of the discussion, though. To answer your question,
Well, you're talking to
we
him.
can give a penny, put it as an agenda item.
Okay.
And we're gonna look at that in 30 days and just see where things are at. Okay. That was a big one. And that was just staff reports. There's no public comment on that right there.
You're not taking any formal action.
Right.
Just give a direction to staff and you're ready to get next week.
Got
So you want to, but you're not required.
No, we can look at that in 30 days. All right. Next item under general business is we have bid. Drew, you're not reading that. That's me, right?
You've got one before that. No, I will read the resolution, but you still have the bold number 8.
Yes, the bid.
The bid, you do not have to read the bid.
Yeah.
You can introduce the agenda item. Yes.
All right. Thank you. We have the bid, $60,000 getting our parking lots finally worked on. this has been going on since before I was even a commissioner. City manager, did you want to speak to that?
We have the final bid. We're just waiting for the commission. We would like to have the commission's approval that we accept the bid and move forward.
All right, commissioners, any questions or comments? Mayor Johnston, we will start with you.
I think it's great. I've read through, I don't see any issues. I'm excited to have parking lots functioning properly.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes, I'm obviously very, very happy about this, because we've been talking about it for a while. The only question I had, to the city manager is, I didn't see anything included, this may be covered under one of the contracts we have with the landscape crew, but, I went down to the parking lot, one in particular I'm talking about, across the street from, go to this. And there's a lot of shrubs there that apparently need to be trimmed back. And I think I talked about this before when I took a tour of some of those parking lots. There's a lot of tom trees, like it's tom something, whatever they are. But they should be cut back and maybe cleaned up to some degree. And I didn't see anything here that included that. That's just under another contract.
I don't know whether or not that is under our landscape contract. I can find out. Commissioner Mealy and I have talked about landscape screening as opposed to fences. And what hit me a little later on is with landscape screening, it's a constant maintenance. It's a constant cost. Whereas if we put a fence up, not as pretty, but it's a one-shot deal.
Right, still required maintenance, but not as often.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Okay, that's, and my second question is, it has to do with fencing. Right there in that same, another parking lot, is a white fence, it's a vinyl fence, I don't know if it's the city's fence or a private fence, but it's deteriorated, it's falling down. And, I don't know if that was something where it's going to be put as part of our maintenance or cleanup of the area, or, because it's a white vinyl fence that some of the slats falling on the ground, some of it's open, and there's a vacant, there's another lot on the other side, so I don't know if that's a private fence or not.
Which lot?
Let's see here, that would be right down the street from that one would be 85.
About the 8th Street lot?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's my understanding that after my talk with Rick today, that we had put $90,000 in the budget for upgrades to our parking lots, and we're going to spend $60 for pavement, and that leaves us $30,000 to figure out and prioritize other enhancements. Is that correct, Rick?
Correct. Okay, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we got all bases covered so that, we don't, leave it half done or something. I mean, the paving is definitely one part of it, but cleaning up some of the other stuff is also part of it.
I'll get a hold of Bill with building maintenance tomorrow and have him take a look at that.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Milligan.
Yeah, I think it's great. Lee's worked long and hard on this. The state has been able to really bring the price down on getting these parking lots leveled out, and hopefully without 2.5 deep mud puddles. So once that's taken care of, then we can work towards tidying up the perimeters and repairing fences and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing them get done.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I really like what Lee Richards had done with this, but I remembered that we started this whole thing by saying that we met certain requirements of the businesses for their parking lots, and we're not living up to it. So when I didn't see anything about perimeter screening, as I mentioned that to Rick yesterday, and we talked about the extra 30,000, that we're not spending, so I'm good with this.
I'm
good with it as well. Let's get her done.
And the only thoughts I had is it would be nice to see a large project that Economic Development Task Force and also TDC working on is I guess these lots have already been informally named, and they've kind of, the groups have been starting on themes for these lots, and it would be good to incorporate signage with the new theme or names, whatever those are, into these lots, and get them appropriately signed. One of the largest challenges, and y'all know, I'm just putting this out there for the public, one of the largest challenges we have as a city is not parking, it's parking logistics. It's getting the cars to the right areas where everybody crams up on A1A and gets all crazy, and when we only see that, we kind of say, well, we have a parking problem. It's really not a parking problem, it's a logistical issue of getting the cars where they need to go. Because all year round, even on peak times, the parking lots are underutilized overall. And I think the signage and the themes and all that can kind of happen at the same time when they get redone. It would be nice to see, so we can get some PR around that and to help get the cars to the lots, so they're not just pretty empty lots. That'd be the only thing that I would like to see added to it, if everyone is okay with that.
Is the Economic Development Task Force ready, or will they be ready by the time this is done to, I mean, it's first I'm hearing about names and things.
That's been work.
No, I know they've been working on it.
Well, actually, it was part of the Flagler Creates.
Right.
Yeah.
And all the names have been identified, including, I mean, they can be designated to make a parking lot you want. But the Flagler Creates group has all of that information, and I was part of that group as well. So, I mean, Rick, if you want to get with that group or me or whatever, we can.
Yeah, we can coordinate.
Get all done in one shot. Even throw in a ribbon cut. Get some press around these things.
5 ribbon cutters.
I'll tell you what, it's been a long time. It has been a long time that we've been waiting to get this lost on. It's definitely something to celebrate.
Let's get a motion and get
Okay,
it done.
so we have that. Any other last comments on that? I'll open up the public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, close public comment. Look for motion.
Make a motion that we award bid number of the 2021-1003. Second.
To whom are you awarding?
Lackman Contracting Group LLC.
And second, is that as amended or whatever you have?
I got it.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And Drew, you have item which was old number 9, which is resolution 2021-10.
Resolution 2021-10, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, declaring the intent to vacate a 100-foot unimproved portion of street known as Marlin Lane, located adjacent to Lot 5, Block 8, Hillcrest subdivision, per property appraiser map book number 5, in parcel A, common area, Stonebridge subdivision, and adjacent to Lot 9, Stonebridge subdivision, according to map book 33, pages 62 and 33 of the official record of Flagler County, Florida, providing for public hearing, providing for conflict, and an effective date.
Okay, and let's see the applicant.
He had emailed earlier in the week, but I haven't spoke to him, so no, I don't see him in the audience. No.
Okay, we'll go straight to discussion. In no particular order. Anybody have thoughts or comments on this item?
Hi.
Go ahead, man.
Drew, maybe you can help me out. I'm confused, or I'm not sure. Why are we giving away land instead of selling it?
Vacation of right-of-way is a statutory process, and you can only vacate right-of-way through the statutory process. You cannot sell right-of-way.
Okay, with that, why do we, as a city, feel the need to, well, just openly give away land? Right now, land's a commodity. Once you give it away,
It's right-of-way, it's not developable.
Okay.
We can't ever build on it, it's right-of-way. It was for them for a road.
Okay.
And the only reason that you vacate a right-of-way is if you have no public purpose for it. And if you have no public purpose for it, for a right-of-way, there's nothing the city can use it for. That's basically the analysis you're making on a vacation of right-of-way.
All right, well, if you continue down, if you're going down Marlin Drive, it runs into the parcel that Palm Coast Intercoastal owns, it's the 31 acres. Would that never be used as a access point to entrance into that parcel if it's
Not a
developed?
question I can answer.
Okay, that would be my concern.
I could answer something on that. That is part of the Gardens project.
Mhm.
And do you want another traffic entrance over all the traffic issues you already have with that development coming through a little dirt road onto John Anderson?
Well, it's just a thought. It could always be sold to somebody else to do a smaller development, and before you give away the land, my thought is at that point in time, you've stopped an entrance into something that could be used for another parcel or a development or something of the sort. Once it's gone, it's gone. That was my question, and since you can't sell it, he's getting a 50 by 150 piece.
No.
You split it down the middle, and half goes to either owner.
He's getting 20.
There's owners on either side
Right.
of the
So
road.
Blackburn would be getting some as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Split it down the middle, 50.
And that one homeowner that's in the little blue, he's getting a little piece. The HOA of Stonebridge is getting some. He's getting 25 feet to the north. The HOA is getting 25 feet and whatever that width is to the south, and so is this parcel owner.
Okay. Well, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this question?
So, I have a question.
Commissioner Brown.
Oh, I'm sorry. So where we said this thing, that does go on the tax rolls, right?
Correct.
Okay. So this is going to generate revenue.
It will be reassessed.
Right. And I spoke to the property owner next to the HOA parcel, that little triangle piece. And that's one of the things I disclosed to them. I said the property appraiser does get notified. It will be reassessed.
So they are generating money.
Commissioner Donovan.
I have two concerns. One the mayor just spoke of is access to developable land. And the other ones we've given away are typically to undevelopable land. I get you don't want to turn this into a thoroughfare, into a big neighborhood, but then too, it may possibly could be a smaller development such as Stonebridge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, once it goes away, it's gone. So my biggest concern is this ditch. If you look at these handouts that the one of the over satellite view delineates where this ditch goes. And from every angle that I look at this, that ditch, which goes from Stonebridge all the way, does this dog leg around the street and then goes between this man's house and the apartments north underneath of Leslie Street, and ends up going to the detention pond where the furniture store is. So I don't know who owns this, but every angle I look at it, this ditch is on that right of way. So if you split that 50-foot piece of land in half and get it one side and half to the other, then somebody has a ditch in it. most likely the side with, from the stone bridge. But I can't get an answer as to, why it's there, who maintains it. But if we give half of it away to somebody, what says, how do we know that they don't fill this ditch in? There's too many unanswered questions that I ask that I don't get answers to. Why that ditch is there, or who it belongs to, or whether there's an easement that will remain. And I don't see anything in our paperwork that says it will, so that's my biggest concern.
There's no easement, right? Not that Penny's, well, that's just speak for yourself.
No, I didn't put in an option for an easement in there. I can do whatever you want me to do.
No, I don't mean for the vacation right away. No, we would reserve an easement because then there'd be public purpose, and if there were a necessity for the right of way, you just wouldn't vacate it. But I think you've looked into what I was asking was you've looked into the ditch, and you have not found an easement that exists.
I've looked at the current deeds and former deeds to the properties that surround that ditch, and none of them reference an easement. My latest research trip was down looking at the Flagler Crossings Plaza where Babcock Furniture is, former Food Lion. And I was looking through the old documents through there today, and I thought for sure I would find a St. Johns River permit in there that maybe said something about it. And I found every permit in there except the St. Johns. And so, but even the discussion, the drainage plan and stuff from them, I printed it out, and it doesn't. It shows the retention pond that's east of that property, but it doesn't talk about anything about the ditch or. It's a mystery.
Actually, it's a bit larger than a ditch. If you look at you can see the one photograph has the green slime on top of it, but that thing's, you stand up high, it's at least 8 feet down to where the water is. So it's a substantial trough through there connecting to two points.
We didn't.
So,
if you look at the survey that I put on here, that survey shows that how wide that ditch is. It's 15 feet wide. It's been 8 feet deep. And it appears all the checking that I've been able to do, it's all private. It runs from a private retention pond from Stonebridge to 2 private retention ponds by CDS and the furniture store. That ditch appears to be on the property from the apartments.
okay,
That
but then
survey
it
shows
goes that dog leg, and in the middle of that dog leg, it's in that 50-foot right of way. If you look at the photograph, this one here, where you have the car in it, you can see the end of that guy's apron on the right, the apron of his driveway. So that should be his property line. So if you go 50 feet to the left of that, the ditch is in it.
That's correct, the ditch is in there.
So that portion, so on that survey, it shows 21.83 feet right there. So he's going to have maybe a couple of feet of it, and the rest of it would go to Stonebridge HOA.
which that retention pond for Stonebridge is theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So that ditch would be part of Stonebridge's retention pond now.
And I also have an email from Mr. Ricky there. He talks where he's owned the property for 38 years. The ditch has always been there, and it's never been maintained in that 38 years that he's been there. So
Stonebridge hasn't been there for 38 years.
No, but Mr. Ricky has.
Why would the ditch be there prior to Stonebridge if it's Stonebridge's ditch?
It might have been built by the senior low-income housing. I'm not sure, but that's what we can't. I don't have a lot of records for the senior low-income housing. I do for the shopping plaza, And that's where I thought I might find something there, but there's very little I have of old records from the senior.
Or it may have been a natural depression.
So the question
Now, if
is,
you cover and look at it, it's not natural,
so as far as filling in the ditch, that could never happen unless they got a permit from DEP, correct? They'd have to go through DEP to fill in that ditch?
No. If there is a St. Johns River permit issued for that, they're the ones that do drainage, not DEP.
Oh, we can't find a permit.
Well, there may be one there. I can't seem to locate it.
But it's getting split in half, that would be stone,
Right.
not the property.
Not property.
Correct.
Did that answer your question, Joe?
no, because I still don't know.
Well, I mean, to me, it's very simple. If you don't like it, vote no and don't pass it instead of talking about it over and over again.
Well, I do think that's the analysis. If there's a concern that there's a public purpose that might be lost by vacating the right of way, the right action would be to vote no.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pope. Rick, I don't, did you talk to Mr. Torino about this at all? Does he see any, to Rick's point, this is kind of an oddball one. This backs to developable land where the other ones did not. Does no one on staff see any future purpose for this land?
I got a text earlier from Larry. City still needs access rights if it's a branch off of John Anderson. I texted him back. I have no idea what he's talking about.
So we do have a potential concern there. We don't know exactly, it's not outlined, but it sounds like he does have a concern on it.
Had a question, but like I say, I can give him a call real quick, but I have no idea what he's talking about, if it's a branch off of John Anderson. If he's talking about the ditch comes nowhere near John Anderson.
No.
More likely Larry would be talking about the road. Larry would be all that concerned about the ditch.
So we got two options. We can seek further clarification from our planner and push this on to get the big picture, or we can vote on it as is now with new info. You guys have any thoughts? I know that because this is a little bit different scenario, my personal thought is to 100% know, especially from our planner, that this will serve no future purpose ever. The land that this backs to is not wetland. It is, we've easily made these decisions when it backs to reserves and wetland and stuff that will never be developed. This could and most likely at some point in the future be developed. The question is, would this road potentially be paved and serve to that land back there? And which is kind of what we're deciding on. My hunch says yes, there is a possibility. Not that it's definitive, but there is a possibility that this road could have a purpose for its access land back there. I would want to verify that with our planner, but that's just me personally. Do you all have any thoughts on how you want to move forward?
Is that within his purview? Is that the kind of thing that a planner looks at?
Very well, maybe. If it were needed for future development, that's absolutely something to come with.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not asking them to do something he's.
So the future development would be for the LLC, is it, Concord?
Maybe not. I mean, we don't know what the ownership of land is going to be at the time that it develops, but, and I think that where the question is going, and why I say yes, the planner, absolutely, that's within the planner's purview, is because you're looking at future development within the community, and how is our traffic pattern going to look? Where do we need rights of way? Because rights of way are, almost always being planned into the future. When we start trying to do them after the fact, they start to get wonky. So I think that is something the plan could potentially weigh in on.
My hunch when I look at satellite, not when I look at these pictures here in particular, but when I look at satellite, my hunch from looking down on it is this road further down the future could and probably will be paved, and it will supply access to property that's back there that will get developed. It's just the way it looks on satellite. If I was a planner, and from my limited knowledge of that, it just seems it looks like that's what it will do. It just makes sense.
Well, with the ditch there, they'd have to build a bridge. It wouldn't just be paving the road and they have access.
They have to get to, something like that.
Same as they did for the apartments when they,
Right.
there's a bridge over,
Mm-hmm.
there's a culvert underneath the Leslie Street and they built that.
So,
So I'm gonna move that, we talked about this for too long. I'm gonna move that we not vote on this tonight, on this resolution, which then we won't vote on the ordinance either. That we ask our planner for a more definitive statement. That made no sense to me, what you read off the phone. We already know from Alan that there is no, this is not part of the motion. We already know from Alan that there is no infrastructure.
Correct.
Okay, so that would be my motion, and we put this off until we have a more definitive report from the planner.
Okay, we have a second.
I will second.
Okay, and let me open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on this particular agenda item? Seeing none. I'll close public comment, and do we just have a consensus, Penny, or do you want to vote roll call? All right.
Commissioner Bryan?
Let's just have a comment. Are we suggesting we're tabling this until the next meeting?
Essentially a table, but
Okay, all right, let's say yes.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. All right, next item, we're gonna skip commission comments, go to item 11, ordinance 2021-03, Drew.
Ordinance number 2021-03, an ordinance of the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending chapter 2, administration, article 5, employee benefits, division 1, section 2-102, police officers retirement system of the code of ordinances of the city of Flagler Beach, amending section 16, minimum distribution of benefits, providing for compliance with the Secure Act, providing for codification, providing for severability provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
All right. We'll just run down the line. We're gonna start this different. Commissioner Phillips, we're gonna start with you.
Oh, yes,
Let's
I
go.
will. I actually, this is final reading, I have no much.
Commissioner Bellman.
No.
Commissioner Bryan.
I read a lot of it, it was boring, yeah. Sorry, Chief.
And it's something we have to do by law, we have to do it.
Mayor Johnston.
None.
I have none on that also, and so what we will do is I will promotion then open up for public comment.
Make a motion that we approve, ordinance 2021-03, and its final reading.
Second.
All right, I'll open this up for public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, close public comment. And Penny, if you could roll call.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. All right, next item. And then ordinance 2021-04, Drew.
Ordinance number 2021-04, an ordinance of the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending chapter 2, administration, article 5, employee benefits, division 1, section 2-101, firefighters retirement system of the code of ordinances of the city of Flagler Beach, amending section 16, minimum distribution of benefits, providing for compliance with the Secure Act,
providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
All right, same thing for fire. Commissioner Phillips?
No question.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Valier? Commissioner Bryant?
No question.
This
No.
one wasn't boring?
Bobby wasn't able to consult.
And Mayor Johnston?
No.
All right, I'll look for motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2021-04.
Second.
All right, open up public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, thank you for roll call.
Commissioner Mealy,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Belhumer,
Yes.
Chair Cooley.
Yes, the motion. I have a request for a short break.
Do you want to just say that number 13?
We'll do 14 on that.
All right.
Only gonna take a few seconds.
13 was, that has been removed. We don't need to do anything with that. And are you okay with it, 14?
Do we need to do
No,
something
that's okay.
Yeah.
14, that's what I
about
wanted to take.
dropping that off the agenda? Okay.
By not, you would not hear it because you didn't pass the.
I understand that.
You don't need to take it on.
Okay. So, your request for break, we can resume at 5 after 8. Does that work? All right.
Turn your mics off, please.
Penny, you're good with the screen?
You're back on.
Okay. Item 14, ordinance 2021-07. Drew?
Ordinance 2021-07, an ordinance of the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving the second amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Flagler Beach, Florida and the International Union of Police Associations for the period October 1, 2018 through September 30th, 2021, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
All right, and so this item, Drew, is,
You remember in your collective bargaining agreement with your bargaining unit, your police bargaining unit, that there's the ability for either party to open up 2 items each year in the middle of your 3-year term, which this is the last year we are now entering. We're now in the last year of that 3-year term, as you can hear in the title of the ordinance. And so this was we talked about 2 things. This is the one that management and the union tentatively agreed to move forward to the commission for you to consider. The union has considered this amendment and they approved it last Monday. I believe it was last Monday, right? That I told you that the union had voted, or the bargaining unit.
I think so.
The bargaining unit has voted to approve, and so now it's coming before you for first reading. The ordinance would come before you for first reading. It will come back again if you move it forward on first reading. This, I suppose, was brought about a little bit by the change of the world with COVID. You've all read it. You see what they were asking for, or what they are asking for. It has gotten quite more detailed since it was initially discussed and brought up. Your management team has put in quite a bit of input, narrowed down what it is that actually is happening. I think Liz did a calculation. Liz, are you still collecting?
She's here somewhere.
I think Pete can answer this question too, though. I think Pete's what he told me today. To get it to where this is not something that is very likely to happen. Also, to get the point across that when staff gets told, don't come to City Hall today because of some pending emergency or health emergency or something like that, that's not a day off for City Hall staff. So that point was made early on, and that's why you see it working more towards a recognition that your first responders, when there's a crisis, they are the first ones that are there. When everybody else is getting home and getting prepared for the hurricane that's coming in, it's your first responders who are out on the road taking care of our families while we also do our best to take care of our own families. So that's why we kind of been discussing with the management team and the bargaining unit, made it more about recognizing that and giving an opportunity to balance the scales a little bit maybe and let them have some time, of course, after the emergency now, to address those personal affairs. And one of the things that we struggled with was we know that there's a lot of time between when you might accrue that flex leave day and the 120 days that you have to use it. I think the management team would have liked to have seen that shorter, but to be honest, it was the management team really that was saying we've got to extend it out because Chief has to keep an operational force, and in order to do that, then he needs to give those guys time to use those days. So it's one that, again, the management team said we can live with this, we can make this work with this language after many meetings and many modifications. The management team was okay with it. I'm not saying anybody was in love with it. I'm not saying the union was in love with it by the end because they would have liked to have less restrictions than we put on how those days are used. But this was the end product of negotiations, and now it's coming before you for your decisions.
and we have 2 parts. We have the ordinance, and then there's a second amendment.
You just have the ordinance. If you approve, today is just the first reading, but really all you're considering is the second amendment. The bargaining unit agreement has to be adopted by ordinance, which means we amend it by ordinance. So the ordinance is really just form language that gets you to that second amendment. So the substantive material you're really reviewing tonight is the second amendment.
Okay. And Chief, did you want to speak on this, or do you need to? Drew covered everything?
Absolutely. If you have questions, I'm here to answer your questions. And when the union brings those things forward, the union does not include myself or Captain Blanchett. We're exempt from the union. So we work with the management team, with Drew and the interim city manager, and we work with the union to try to get things. But that was something that the union brought forward, the language that we came up with. We had multiple meetings about this, so. Do you have any questions on obviously here to answer anything that you may?
One thing that I failed to mention that I should, just to make sure I draw your attention to it, is flex leave days, unlike vacation days, sick days, there is no payout or buyback for those days. And if they're not used within the period they're supposed to be used, they do just go over.
They're awarded because of certain circumstances.
It's that first two lines. It's if 25% of your non-bargaining unit member, full-time hourly employees are directed by, it's going to be the city manager in those cases, but directed by the city to not report to work in person and to not work from home, then you would have that kicking in, because your non-union staff in that situation, they are being paid for not coming into work. But, and I think what Liz can speak to is how frequently she expects that we would actually trip that threshold of 25%. Do you want to come up and tell us? I think you kind of did the math on it. And even with COVID, how often that would have been tripped. I think that's the numbers that you actually ran, isn't it?
Yes. When you take out the full-time employees that are not included with the bargaining unit, it's 65 full-time employees. So that would be just 16 full-time employees that would have to be out, being paid from not working and not remotely working.
And so even with the do you know how many times in the past year that threshold would have been tripped with work from homes?
Well, with COVID, in the first few weeks of COVID, we might have tripped that threshold. We didn't do a count on that, but most of what this whole pandemic has taught us, everyone is really able to work from home remotely, and I don't think we would really reach that threshold.
And then the other thing that kind of went into the thought process in our thinking about it, and also in discussing it with the bargaining unit, is there are a lot of your employees that even when everybody else is remote working, the water plant, they're there working, your sanitation drivers, they're out there working. So it's not like, even with something like COVID, even when most of your staff can't come to City Hall today, you've got your staff remote working, you've got your sanitation groups, they're out there running the trucks, you've got your water plant, they're working. So that's why it's that threshold sounds easier to reach than it actually is. But that was also one of the points that, again, as I mentioned earlier, we were trying to drive through in each of these negotiations. This is not a day off for City Hall staff. That's not what it's meant to be, nor is that what it is. When there's a hurricane coming in, and for safety's sake, city manager has to say, don't come to City Hall today. It's not, people aren't going out to the beach, they're not going on vacations. This isn't the kind of thing that you can plan for.
All right. We will just run down the line. Questions or comments from Mayor Johnston?
No comment.
Commissioner Ryan?
I'm good.
Commissioner Bellingham? Commissioner Meehan?
I'm not okay with it at all.
All right, then what do you got?
As Drew already said, when our staff was told to stay at home, they were working. And they didn't get any extra compensation. They didn't get any extra compensation for it. They didn't get any extra time for it. They just worked from home. I know I spoke with at least 3 staff members during those days. I called the office number, we transferred over to the house, and it was just like they were in the office. So I'll have to say that I was surprised to see this in previous negotiations. Things always seem fair and reasonable to me. This one does not. As Drew said, there are lots of other departments that have to work during those times. have to have people at the water plant, we have to have people at the wastewater plant, we have to have our sanitation drivers. We even have to have some outdoor rescue people working. Fire department. So, like I say, I was disappointed. We've always, as a commission, praised the work of the police department. But I have a question, Drew. This is very close to the end of their current contract. And before I even get to that, there is pending legislation both at the federal level and the state level coming out of this whole defund the police thing that is going to say to us, should it pass, and it probably will at both levels, that once something's in the contract that has some money value, and this does have some money value.
One could argue with that.
Well, I can argue that it does. That we can't then take it away. We will not be able to cut the amount of money that we spend on the police, not on the whole department, but on their salaries or their benefits. So it worries me that if we say yes now, it's going to be on the taxpayers ad infinitum. So I was wondering, could we not make this part of the next negotiations, which needs to start soon?
I think May, was that when we said that after Mr. Woodson gets in, we were gonna, late May is probably when we would start those, so yes, in about a month and a half, we'll be entering the negotiations for the full negotiation of the contract.
So that's.
And if the commission were to not approve this, I would expect this to be part of what they asked for in that negotiation.
So that's kind of where I am.
Commissioner Phillips.
I'm not going to repeat what Commissioner Woolley just said, but I am not in favor of it as well. I'm just going to concur with Commissioner Woolley right now.
Okay. My thoughts are, so this is kind of an off-cycle request, basically, would be one way to put it, Drew?
Correct. Pursuant to your contract, either party can make requests, I think it's 2 items get reopened in the off-cycle negotiations. And so they made that request last year. Because of COVID, it got delayed and pushed out longer than it normally would have. So we started negotiating last year, and we had a long gap in that because of COVID and the inability to meet face-to-face and all those things. But yes, this is one of their 2 inter-term reopenings.
I struggle with the logic on it. I understand the request, it's just, but then at the same time, I also understand this particular scenario happening, the percentage is minuscule.
If your staff is home but working from home, expected to be working from home, then this would not fit.
Question for city manager, does our staff or the vast majority of our staff have the ability to work from home?
Yes.
So even if, let's say, you're in grounds, you know, something with Alan or anything, they could still, they're not gonna be out cutting grass when you have a hurricane coming, but you can get a lot of your paperwork done if you have remote access.
Actually, grounds might be a poor example because grounds is one of those groups that actually probably is pretty busy when you have a hurricane.
Right. Yeah, but somebody could do their administrative part of the job from home during that time. They have the access to do that, I guess is the question.
Yes, and we don't have per se a grounds division. Alan's people take care of that. Bill's people take care of that. Alan's people don't miss time. I mean, utilities, we have water main breaks, they worked right straight through the COVID.
It's actually but it's actually not a poor example. It is a really good example for the practicalities of what actually goes on there, because the units of your government here that are the least able to remote work are the ones that, when an emergency is coming in, are the ones that have to be here, that are here, they're working overtime in those periods, because it is things like the infrastructure needs, it's the water plant, it's the securing and hardening the infrastructure to protect it. So it kind of shows, I think to Liz's point, why there just aren't many situations where this really comes into play, because when you have the emergency, those individuals that don't have a truly administrative job, they're the ones who have to be out on the road, just like the police officers and your firefighters.
They're the ones that are out there clearing the storm drains to make sure that when the flooding subsides, it's gonna go away.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that, it would be, to use your word, minuscule, chance that, we would, have 25% of our employees unable to,
And getting
told-
paid.
and told to stay home.
Now, just throwing this out there, I mean, obviously there would be verbiage in here that excludes things like holidays and stuff when the staff is at home getting paid holidays.
It's right there in the first line. For any federal, state, county, or city declared disaster or emergency in which 25% of non-bargaining unit member full-time hourly employees are directed by the city not.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, and I will look for a motion on ordinance 2021-07.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-07.
I'll second it.
All right, and I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Thank you. Your roll call.
Commissioner Phillips?
No.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bellheimer?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
No.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion.
And Debbie, I'm sorry, was that yes or no?
No.
Okay.
All right, motion passes. Next item is.
That will be coming before you for second reading, not April 8th, but.
I have to skip now, so April, was it 22nd? Yeah.
All right, next item, commission comments. We will start with Mayor Johnston.
All right, busy 2 weeks. Piggybacking off of Bob Snyder needing some help to educate the youth as well as some different residents within Flagler County. I had a meeting with the Flagler County Advisory Council with Advent Hospital, and that's something that they are also looking for as well. So that was something that Melissa Holland and Mayor Holland and I had said that we would help them with. Had a meeting with Zero Waste Gainesville, and it was a Zoom call, and they were looking to have connections here within Flagler Beach for alternative ideas for recycling. They knew that we were stepping back from plastics and glass, and they wanted to have a point of contact to give different facilities that might be able to take plastic, and also work with the other cities to potentially in 2022 have a zero waste week to bring awareness of lowering trash consumption and also single-use plastics, which I thought was really cool. They said that they would come in, they would have a point person for the city that would be a good advisory to get the point across. Jane, I followed up with Boston Whaler. I had a tour with the Vice President of Operations. We're still working, it's a work in progress, and still looking at getting some more specifics on their different practices to really be able to answer any question that came across from the commission or from the public, but so far it looks like it's looking good. And they also said that they would be open to give anyone on the commission a tour as well. So if anyone is open to the idea, they can
schedule a tour. I have the point of contact for that. Then, I'm gonna.
Susie, can you give that to Penny and Penny?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. I also, last meeting, Daryl Reynolds, he was the gentleman that came up and did a presentation with the cleanest beach. I worked last week and I created a poster. I can kind of pass it down here too. That will be handed out to businesses this week to bring awareness that we will have our first award for the cleanest walkover. I've made sure to not use crossover because of Rick's recommendation. The lifeguards will be the judges of the cleanest beach. I worked with Tom, spoke with him. He said that really is great because it gives him a reason to have the lifeguards drive the whole beach. The first one will be awarded April 22nd, which is Earth Day. And then the award will be presented at the Flagler Beach All-Stars meeting, beach cleanup by the lifeguards. And the last thing on my list is Johnny LaJuri had Steve Smith from DOT reach out to me, and he's from the production management office. And there is a project going on. It's called the District 5 Landscape Grant, and they have a small budget. And they were inquiring if we would fill out an application. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks from the application process, and they would be willing to give us money to landscape our medians on A1A. The money would consist of the plants and the construction costs, and the only cost to us is to maintain the plants after the project is complete. So I have forwarded the application to Penny. Not sure who fills that out, who reads it, but I thought that that was a good idea for our city. A couple weeks ago, probably about 2 months ago, we did a beach cleanup and we saw the conditions of our medians, and they definitely need some love and attention. So at no cost to the city, I thought that this was a great idea, and we can help beautify it, add some curb appeal.
What's the deadline for that to get it?
They said if we can do it ASAP so they can make sure to allocate that money for us. They also said they are in the process of working a project that runs up to the south side of Flagler Beach. So if we can get the application in to them, they might be able to go ahead and do the plant order along with the south side project, and we could have those plants delivered, and it would just kind of continue on through the town. So I have all the information. I forwarded it to Penny. I forwarded it tonight, so it'll be fresh. Be at the top. And just kind of get started on that. And you have a year to complete the project if we decide to go with it.
Can I say something in reference to that?
Yes.
You might want to check with whoever designed those drainage areas, because that's what those medians are. They're drainage areas.
Mm-hmm.
So too many plantings might hinder the water travel or something. I don't know, but that may be something you want to.
Absolutely.
You don't want to lose your chance of getting something by going after something that may not be feasible.
Absolutely.
So,
well, if
I don't know who you need to talk to.
it's anything that's along A1A, so if we can't use it for the medians, we can use it somewhere else. And they had a small budget, and they really wanted to be able to work with Flagler Beach.
The medians on 100 are kind of along the way also.
Well, I'm
Just
saying
for now.
if we can't do the medians because of a drainage issue, we could do somewhere else.
Right, that's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Commissioner Bryan.
Keeping in line with what the mayor is talking about as far as keeping the beaches clean, I was in touch with the executive director of the organization called Beaches Still Green, and she actually called me this morning, and we discussed the fact that I have actually requested 50 cigarette butt receptacles,
And she called me this morning and indicated that they had a grant they're actually having 2,500 paid. Wanted to know how many more we would probably need. So driving along the boardwalk and the crossovers and all of that today, I discovered that we're probably going to need twice that many. So the only requirement that they have is that we have a GPS location on each one of the receptacles that we put up. They will provide them. They're actually going to plan on delivering them to some location here in Black Beach at the end of April. And we will have to put them up. But they will also be responsible for coming down once we have a large number of the cigarette butts. They actually collect them and take them. They are shipped back to Pennsylvania somewhere where they actually break them down, strip them down, and actually recycle the product. The chief has been working with me on some language on some of the things we're doing to address the cigarette butt littering in the city. And the cigarette butts, even though a lot of people think that they're biodegradable, they're not. They're actually made out of fiberglass and plastics, which do not break down. They actually linger in the water, in the grass, and everywhere else. They get into the waterways. They actually pulled down today. I didn't turn them off. There were red snapper and other species of fish that actually eat them, thinking that they were some type of a edible insect or something. And all of that type of cellulose and all that stuff stays in the animal, which we're actually ingesting. Not only is the fish, but also the ducks and the birds and all kinds of other things. Back to the receptacles. So we're actually going to try to get the receptacles. We're going to get them, try to get them put up. We're looking at maybe locating them at the beginning of the dune, the walkover, and maybe at the bottom of it, and along the boardwalk. One of the things I talked to Drew about also was the littering policy ordinance that we have in the city, and we don't really have a littering ordinance, which is something I'd love to bring forward, because right now the legislators, as you probably know, is actually possibly proposing a no smoking ban on beaches and parks, which could give us the ability to say no smoking on beaches. But anyway, we're going to try the education part of it. She also told me, and her name is Mary Beth, I believe it is. She also told me that there's another grant for education that we might be able to get, which would help with the education part of what you're doing, and what we're all doing as far as trying to clean up the city and prevent people from living in the first place. Some of the little cartoon things we have is like this one: butts, pick yours up. But one of the things that Matt came up with was, what was it, Matt?
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Well, no ifs, ands, or buts. So, yeah, so if you just said the same thing. So we're looking at all kinds of things here in order to kind of educate folks. It's going to be a learning process. I came down, I kind of drove along the beach also, and I noticed right there on one of the walkovers, and I guess because the bikeway, as you go out to the beach, it looks like we never had a cleanup out there because everyone's flicking their butts. And there is a Florida law that prohibits, it's against the law to flick cigarette butts from your vehicle or to go on the street. It's against the law to do it. It's just not enforced. So hopefully we don't have to go through those enforcements, but if we can get some education out there and help people to recognize that we have a policy here that we're going to have the cleanest beaches in Florida, then we might be able to get that across. So we're going to keep working on that. Some of the legislative issues that I'm sure you folks know that are coming up. Some of our other sister cities and counties are actually adopting resolutions opposing regulations on home-based businesses, HP 403, and I think everyone's read about that, which is they're just trying to take all of our home rule. Resolutions opposing legislation on both management and property rights, resolution opposing elimination of regional planning councils. We talked about that at the last meeting, and the rationale behind that is I think a lot of it goes back to the developers. They don't want the regional councils to participate in what some of the cities are doing as far as helping to control what's going on in their particular districts. Resolution opposing short-term vacation rentals, we all know about that one. Resolution supporting repeal of the preemption of local government regulations regarding tree pruning, trimming, and removal. We're actually a resolution trying to prevent us from controlling what we
it's amending the one
that's already there.
Yeah.
So those are some of the resolutions. I just thought I'd let everyone know that other cities are actually adopting to let Tallahassee know that we're not in favor of all of those kinds of things that they're trying to do to us. One other thing is that, and I talked to Drew about this, and he can elaborate on it or tell me to shut up, but that was the gardens annexation. There's maybe some of our adjoining, cities here might be interested in annexation of the gardens, but, and in particular Palm Coast, but Drew is very good friends with his counterpart over there, so hopefully we can engage in some friendly conversations to, maybe, dispel that or at least get some clarification.
Or at least get your feelings about it out there.
Right. So there is some talk about Palm Coast annexing the gardens. So, I mean, if we sort of, finger in our eye of what we're trying to do here.
We've already had a conversation with. Didn't we kind of agree that we were interested in?
We did agree that we were, and that's why I think it's significant that to the extent that Palm Coast thinks that they're going to, that there needs to be some level of conversation going on as to how you feel about that.
How we feel with that annexation?
The idea of Palm Coast annexing.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's a discussion that we need to be aware of here as a board, and also let Palm Coast know that we are aware that they are at least considering. In one of the local papers 6 or 7 months ago, before former Mayor Nets passed away, there had actually been some comments that he had made about actually running infrastructure utilities down at Anderson. So, these are discussions that they need to at least talk about and sometime engage with the mayor, let them know that, we're kind of opposed to what they're anticipating if they are in fact thinking about that. So,
what would be the best way to handle that?
Well, that's why I know Bill Wright's been, I've worked with him in various places over the years, so I will have a conversation with Bill just to kind of see what his feeling of his position is. I think once Mr. Whitson is here, then I think he can do the same thing with his counterpart there. But I also think that probably to the extent any of you interact with elected officials there, I think that it ought to be at least expressed that Flagler Beach isn't willing to just roll over and allow Palm Coast to necessarily take it. These are the kind of things that some jurisdictions where you might see a joint planning agreement or something like that come out that deals with things like annexation. But it's only courteous, for those conversations to be happening out in the open and not. Annexation is not meant to be one-upsmanship or gamesmanship, and especially where it's here. If I understand the configuration of the property, there's a stretch of Flagler Beach that actually would prevent Palm Coast from annexing because you can't create an enclave, you can't create a pocket. So the rumors that I have heard is that the discussions are actually approaching Flagler Beach to ask Flagler Beach to de-annex property so that Palm Coast can reach property to annex.
Well, there's some parcels right down on Route 100 that actually precludes them from actually just coming across.
Right.
But here again, it's all about discussions and getting this out there so we know.
We shouldn't be hearing these things in rumors, I think is the point.
Well,
They should be coming to us and saying, hey, we're some of our folks are thinking about this. What are your thoughts?
You mean like they just did
finding
on
out
the facility? Right. They didn't know about that until it was done and over with.
So, Mayor Johnson, would you like to kind of at least take first shot at that? Is the communication and getting that message out?
Absolutely.
I was going to ask, should we go as far as writing the Broncos council?
Not yet. That's why I kind of wanted to work the back channel. I don't have a problem mayor to mayor, that conversation happening. And I'll have the conversation with the city attorney. When you have city manager full-time, no offense, but we have your full title city manager in, he can start working that channel. And we get a better sense because again, this is a little bit of rumor mill, but I've heard it from enough places in enough different ways that I think there's probably some substance to it. But before you weigh in as a full body with something formal like a letter, I would like to flesh out as much information as we can, because I don't want us to poke them in the eye unnecessarily because we feel like we've been poked
Exactly.
Question.
It's just kind of stating our intent. Say, we're interested in this and pursuing this, and if for some reason we decide not to, then we can turn it over to y'all, something like that. But they can't annex it anyways, right now.
If everything configures the way that that it has been explained to me, there is a piece of Flagwood Beach jurisdiction between Palm Coast and Maxwell.
But the communication channels, that solves all kinds of problems by just jumping on that.
Yeah, and that's why here again, and I don't want to be the bearer of, controversial type of, but I think it's to our advantage to make sure we have open communications to understand what's going on, because I've heard from enough sources as well. So that's why I wanted to at least bring it up. And I did, talk to our city attorney first before I, decided to just bring this up, make sure we're okay. That's all I have.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
When I was on that side, I remember there was a conversation up here regarding Rick was going to reach out to Belchi and to start discussing the annexation, just start tiptoeing around it and see if there was any interest, see if we can open up those lines of communication. Rick, have you gotten anywhere with that with him to see if anywhere have you?
Yeah, I had a conversation with him. I shared that information in the past meeting. He told me that yes, he was interested as long as it were the east side of John Anderson, which is what Palm Coast wouldn't be able to get to unless they annex the other side first. Where that was left was that I was going to try and find out the cost of what it would be to create a reuse water system, and staff was going to maybe try and work out some offering to them by using maybe some of our impact fee money to finance a portion of that cost and make it more, make it look better to them. So that's where we are right now. And I talked to Rick earlier today, and I was somewhat surprised by the numbers he gave me, because he told me it was $500,000 to $750,000 to get it started, which isn't anywhere near the money that I might have thought it would be. Now that doesn't include the full storage. Is that correct, Rick?
Correct. And it also does not include piping from our facility to the project.
But that doesn't include addressing the salinity?
Well, that's totally separate. That's something we gotta deal with in our lift stations.
That's something that we're working on right now. And the salinity is, the best of everybody's knowledge, is coming from the saltwater intrusion into our sewer systems. The slip lining that they're doing right now should correct a lot of that.
Good segue in all your stuff, Rick.
All right, well, that was one of the things I was gonna talk about, was that cost. I could always go knock on Belchi's door again.
I think I was thinking that as I was reminded of your conversation, since you've been kind of the point there, you might just mention, the city's attitude towards that look, who are you asking out the ball?
Yeah.
It's us or Palm Coast, and I think that's a fair conversation.
Well, he's told me since the very beginning, when I started talking to him, which was before anybody knew that bought the land practically, and that was that he would prefer to have a Flagler Beach address. He would prefer to call it Flagler Beach as opposed to Palm Coast. So, and that's something he's reiterated through all the conversations I've had over time. So I'll give him a shout and see what his thoughts are most recent. And nothing's keeping us from talking to our counterparts on their council, correct?
You're always allowed to talk to the other elected officials. I don't have a problem if any of you do. It's kind of like the mayor to mayor communication. If any of you do have those contacts there,
there's no reason we couldn't talk to the mayor because
nope,
because she's part of the council and a voting member of the council.
My only pullback on that part of the discussion was to not speak as a body in a letter from the dais yet until we have more facts. But if you run into them at the grocery store or whatever, you run into them in social circles and you mention it, I have no problem with that.
Question. It sounds like we're at a point where we just need to ask Mr. Velchey to come visit us in a meeting. It is kind of what it sounds like to me. Am I off on that? Because I really think that might be we're kind of at that point. And that would just, rather than do this long, drawn out back and forth with little bits and pieces, we can just sit down and say, all right, where are you at? Here's where we're at. And
You might be a little bit premature.
Yeah, I think we need
two things
to go over it a little bit more.
One is the information and facts, because you don't want, when it's somebody that you're trying to now incentivize to want to annex in, because you're not going to get there without Belcher saying, yes, I want to. You don't want to bring them into a meeting that accomplishes them. So I think it's important to have your plan in mind and know where you as a body are before you make that invitation, because you don't want to have any room in between you guys when you have that meeting. You don't want any areas to be exploited. And the second is, again, no offense to Rick, I think this is one that your incoming city manager will want to be very involved in, and I really think he ought to be sitting, the guy who's going to be sitting in that chair for time to come, ought to be sitting in this chair when you have that meeting. A little bit on the early side, but I think you can direct your staff to start to do as much as they can to start getting the information that we need to put that, to put what that annexation would look like together, start putting it together anyway, so that when Mr. Whitson gets here, then again, we've got as much stacked up on his desk and ready to go as possible.
And that was my thought when I first brought this back around, that we could try and get some things and some ideas and the process put together by staff in the meantime until Mr. Whitson got here. All right, well, that's enough of that. I went to the first Northeast Florida League of Cities, what do you call it? Meeting?
Shindig.
Thanks. But anyway, that was neat to do after over a year of not having them. We had a topic speaker talking about TPOs, which was very informative to people that don't know about TPOs, but less so for me because I've been somewhat involved over time. So, I talked to Rick a bit today about the northern walkovers, and the timing seemed to be pretty good because he had just gotten an email from FDOT confirming that they would take care of the cost of replacing those 3 that we lost. Is it 3 of them, right? 2 or 3 of them?
3.
So, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but what Rick had said to me was that the email said that we would go ahead and have it done and pay for it, and we would get reimbursed. Also spoke to Rick a little bit about when they put that sand fence up, where a couple of these walkovers, inoperative walkovers, that were still there. They didn't go all the way up to it, so now people are walking in between the sand fence and going down there anyway. So, I asked if there was a way that we could kind of close that gap.
Unbelievable.
So Rick said he would follow up on that.
We do have a citizen with a taser.
Decommissioned taser. I'm really looking forward to seeing this recycle get geared up, and hopefully Rob's pretty close to getting started with the cardboard aluminum stuff. This land swap for that property over where the fuel station is, I know I brought this up a couple times and we haven't really decided. Rick doesn't, he's gotten information, feedback back that our former city manager said that our city would pay for all surveys involved.
They're done.
But, honey,
He wasn't here, he was away. But
put a note on my desk.
yeah, those are current surveys. The surveys are done. So, and what Larry also agreed to was either some type of signage or fencing in the area to say, so the mistake didn't happen again. Well, it doesn't have to be full on fencing. It can be split rail. It could be signage every, a small sign maybe every 100 feet or so. So, I mean, I don't think that would be a huge expense, but the surveys are done. I spoke to Stevenson. All 3 properties are done, and the ones he emailed me didn't have signatures, but he said I could call him back and get those.
They also had the wetlands delineation.
Yes.
Excellent.
well, so then we're 3 steps ahead on that one.
Yes.
That's good news. So maybe we can figure out what we're going to do by budget time as to whether we're going to rebuild that thing over there where it is, because it's in pretty bad shape.
Right.
At least needs to be repaired, if not replaced or somewhere else. But, it'd be nice that it's our property and then we can just fix it, repair it, where it stands.
And with that being on this side of the bridge, the majority of our vehicles operate from this side. It would be foolish to move it over to the wastewater plant.
I agree.
But that is a safety thing that we were talking about.
Well, initially it was because what we have now is partially on county property.
I know that.
So Larry just didn't want to rebuild it in that same spot. And I don't know what his other thoughts were.
I thought it
across.
was, during the hurricane, like something safety issue. I thought that's the way I remember it.
So that's good news. That's news that Rick wasn't able to give me earlier before the meeting. So it's.
Sorry, you were going.
I also talked to him about the school building. Rick, I'll let you talk on that as to where we stand on moving Lee Richards over there, or finishing up those other office space.
We have the furniture for Lee to move over. We're just waiting for IT now to come in and make the final connections, pull the last bit of wire. The other 2 offices will be for our future city engineer and our city planner. Well, like I say, there's the power is there. We just don't have the IT people in there yet.
Right, and I emailed
Jared.
Thank you, Jared, just yesterday about another issue, but I brought that up, and because I think your mother had just opened a new office somewhere, so they were getting busy. They were pressured to do that. There's other issues with the sheriff's department that they were pressured to do. So I think we might have got the intent was to do us first because we were a smaller job, and then some of the employees had to be quarantined because of a COVID exposure, and then I think your mother wanted to get that office open. And she put a little pressure on, so I think we've been pushed back again. I haven't heard back from them though, but I believe that's what the status of that is.
Okay. I just wanted the rest of you to know where we still on that. It's two things I'd really like to see us get expedited, and that's finishing up this LDR stuff and getting that dumpster enclosure done across the street.
And they're both being worked on.
Yeah.
And I did have an email from Larry, consultant to have completed draft for Flagler Beach mid-April. Will then go to the Home Builders Association for first, go to the home builders to have them review it.
Okay. Mid-April. Okay,
Yes.
very good. Thank you, Rick. I'm good. Commissioner Manley.
Okay, to pick up where Ken was talking about the legislation, I keep starting to write letters. I know the subcommittee made an amendment. So with your permission, I'd like to wait till next week when the subcommittee are done and they can keep amending things, because I don't want to write about something they know what we're going to be voting on. And we had already agreed everything about the planning councils and about the voting rights. While I'm writing, I have a lot of heartburn, use a rude term, about the building design line. So tonight, I got that too. They don't want us to be able to control building design. You know, I want to build a triangular, octagonal, purple with pink hats.
Yeah, that's caught my attention.
Okay.
The state wants to have their own charrette.
Yeah.
The home-based businesses, was that part of what you were
That's another one, I didn't get there yet.
There's several.
I've got pages.
All right, I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm gonna write about this one. Okay. I think we can leave short-term rentals alone because we're still grandfathered. One that bothers me, but I won't write about it, it's now we may have to write a private property rights element in our comp plan. No code enforcement on anonymous complaints.
Yeah.
Which practically, what does that even mean? So if you have a code enforcement officer who's out on the road and somebody calls him anonymously to complain about a property, does that mean that that property that got complained about is now immune from prosecution?
Yeah.
He has two eyes. He doesn't need a complaint to institute a code enforcement. That one drives me crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that one drove me crazy too. Let's see, what else
The
did I
good
have?
old boys.
Oh, the home-based businesses. They have to be, you got amended last night, so where businesses must be consistent with the neighborhood. But, and you can't make any exterior changes to the house, which we already had. And no effect to the area, it keeps the local authority on any aspects. That's the Senate bill, but the House bill has not been changed yet.
Parking restrictions or something too, didn't it?
Well, the Senate bill is the one that has, House bill is the one that has all the stuff that would be upset. And the Senate bill, this is as of last week. But I don't know what else has happened since.
We can't do anything with any of these until they're further along, right?
They're right now in subcommittees in the House and the Senate. So the next thing that would happen after the subcommittees finish writing their amendments, or not writing amendments, then somebody from the House and somebody from the Senate has to get together and have it all done. But they can't amend it anymore. They can't. The House can't amend theirs anymore, and the Senate can't until they get together. But at least we can then know what we're talking about. There was one on impact fees, what it could be spent on, tax on how much it could be raised every year. That one is 2 House bills and 2 Senate bills. I'm gonna look at that one. Fuel, this doesn't affect us. Fuel choices and what kind of fuel that we use, they really want to control. And the voting right one. Oh, there's one that says we can't have a lobbyist, pay lobbyists. Right. Yeah. I texted Edgar on that one and said, what do you do? That's what you do for a living. And he said it's not going anywhere. It's only a House bill, there is no Senate bill. And he didn't think it was going to go anywhere. You know, and I look at the way Tallahassee functions and how they're telling us we have to function, really makes me crazy. I sat through 2 webinars that we did last week on these issues. Let's see, that pretty much covers it. So if I find enough to write about on any of these other ones, go for it. Hopefully by next week there'll be more final form. Let's see. Yeah. All right. As I mentioned before, I went to the chamber and had a luncheon at the Hilton, and in the classic presentation on tourism. And the one statistic I'd like to share, visitors who drive the county have saved local residents $756 per house every taxes. So when we get complaints about too many tourists and how much it costs the city, that's true. But it also saves every household $756. I think that was very interesting. All mine. Yeah. So we should complain about it. On the minutes that we approved earlier, one of the items was the local tobacco retail licensing. I know Penny, you were not feeling well. It's not something that you could have let it together or not.
Susie signed it tonight. It'll go out tomorrow.
I guess we did it. Okay.
And I've communicated with Miss Williams. I asked her if she wanted me to send it directly to the chair or give it to her, and she said she's already has several. Just send it to her.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. And the other one was about the Sultan Church and utilities, so we did take care of that. That's it.
Commissioner Phillips.
I also attended the Hilton Chamber luncheon, and Amy, I'll just reconfirm, Lucas did a fantastic job. It was super interesting, and it was just good to get everybody together again, which was really nice. And then the last thing I have is a decision was made by the Pell Parker Park Committee not to do a presentation tonight. They made the decision to meet with the city manager first to get his input before it comes in front of us. So I'll be working with Mr. Whitson to set up the date for Steve Scott and I to meet with Mr. Whitson. So more to come on that. I believe everybody should have received a copy of or a video in their inbox of our new design. It was some fly drone footage.
I didn't.
Rambo put it all together, so that was Rambo. That's his first name. So, and that's all I got.
I didn't, I'm wondering our firewall blocked it, because I know I was copied on saying I would get it, but I didn't.
Oh, you didn't receive it? Did anybody else?
No, and I tried to send myself from my personal Gmail about 10 photographs for doing that CRA report, and the firewall blocked it. So maybe I don't know.
Okay.
I'll look again, but I didn't see it.
Okay, so that's fine.
I think it was issues, because I tried to send a bunch of pictures.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a 10-minute video. If
Yeah,
you
anything
can't
over
open it, I was able to
15
open
and
it.
20
But I mean,
megabytes at
I'll
once.
That's all I got.
All right.
And I'm impressed that you can say Cal.
Oh, pardon, I have to say so.
Got to spend some time with Adam Morley. For those of you that aren't familiar, picking up trash out on the litter getter. He's made a huge impact up where he is based in St. Augustine, so much so that has nothing left to get. Our part of the intercoastal is very bad with debris and stuff. Right, because he just pulls it off the shore and puts it back in the current. He wants to help, and he's about making an impact. I've reached out to him and requested that he come down. The only thing that we really need to do is kind of just come up with a consensus that we are in support of his efforts. He wants to make sure that we are in support of his efforts. He gets pushed back in some municipalities. Why anybody would push back against somebody cleaning up? They do. He gave me a whole list. He started talking about the hard time they gave me. Yeah. Part of the support that he would like is us to supply him with a dumpster to obviously put all the trash that we pull out in our coastal in. Talked with Rick, he's fine with that. Talked with Rob from sanitation, he's fine with it. And maybe a place to, if he does a 2-day cleanup, place to just put the boat overnight so he doesn't have to lug it home, bring it back the next morning. He's a pretty high maintenance guy, that was it. But I'd like to know if we can come up with a consensus that he and his operation with full support of Flagler Beach to have him and volunteers from here join him in cleaning up the intercoastal.
What's the downside?
Nothing. It's fantastic.
It is mind-numbing the amount of pushback he gets. He's told me so many stories where he looks at these elected officials in other places. He's like, "You realize I'm cleaning up your trash and I don't live here." And they're probably the same ones around Tallahassee. I don't know. That's all I can think of. But we have consensus on that.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
I just want to make sure that we put that out there, and so he knows. We also have beach cleanup April 3rd coming up. You all wanted to join us and everything. I have some cool extra long trash grabbers, so I don't have to go traipsing all over the dunes to get trash, and that's really all I got. Drew.
Remember that micro-mobility device ordinance is coming back. I've heard from one of you about issues that have arisen since then with the operation of the bikes and scooters, mainly scooters, I think, at this point. So while what you'll see in your agenda packet is what you passed on first reading, the amendment you passed on first reading, I will come with some ideas of other things you might consider when it comes to the operation. So I just want to let you all know that in case there are things any of you have seen that you might want to address or want to discuss, the more lead time I have to look around and to think about things, usually the better I can bring to here. So if there are issues you want me to have in mind when I'm searching, or if you've seen some ordinances that you like, you can either bring it in with you, let me know ahead of time, and just try to maximize our time together when we consider it on the second reading.
Good. A couple concerns to consider while you're doing that while we're on topic. Already I've seen issues where these devices are being abandoned all over. I can speak for that as a business owner.
And that's the main one that we started off trying to address.
Right. The other thing is, and I don't want, they're large enough where they're not a micro mobility device. These are large scooters. These are people-sized things. They're being, and I guess the only way I can say it to have it make sense is they're being parked illegally. So if you were to put a car in a place that they're putting these, they would get a ticket. So I guess the question is, in the ordinance or in anything we're drafting, if somebody does something, like let's say somebody runs this thing up on the dune, leaves it, who's accountable for that? Is it the operator that has
And
to?
that's really the challenge as we get into the operation of it. It's, and the analogy that I used was, it's like going to Enterprise Rent-A-Car and punishing them for what somebody did when they were driving a car that they rented. Because they can't control, so it's trying to figure out ways of at least making them tell you what you can and can't do, making sure that they're conveying information appropriately, because you really can't hold somebody responsible if they did not cause it or allow it or negligently allow it. And at what point do you draw that line? I think that is a real challenge. But yes, those are kind of exactly the kind of ideas that I've been kind of, how do we control the operation through the service providers without going so far that really we're asking the service providers to do something that's just impractical to do. Some of the things that you may be interested, this first one I've read it multiple places now, kind of circumstantially, but I have yet to find the statute that I feel comfortable actually says it, that if it's an electric scooter, you have to be 16 to operate it. And I was curious, 16 to operate it. And so I was curious because a lot of the complaints that I've heard about have been quote unquote kids.
Yes.
By kids, do we mean less than 16 riding electric scooters?
In a lot of cases,
Yes.
yes.
So that could end up being more of a law enforcement. But again, I read it in a lot of places. You have to be 16 to operate an electric one. I've yet to find a statute that says it.
Really?
Because there's difference in what I'm curious with and actually you can send me a picture if you have one or can get one of what you're talking about when you're saying the large scooters. Mm-hmm. Because I think where scooters are challenging is you have scooters with 2 wheels and foot power. Now you've got electric scooters, and then you have mopeds. And mopeds are a different animal altogether. Mopeds, you have to have a motorcycle license.
They're large versions of what you would remember as a razor. It's flat bottom, you stand on it, and then it's upright with 2 small wheels. Problem is, these are large, and they're fast and high power. So if you were to take what would be the old razor and then make it full adult size, put cup holders on it, and give it high power, like they do. They've got cup holders on it, so you can drink your beer while you're riding your scooter down the street. It's crazy.
And you just mentioned so scooters, like bicycles, weird legislature things that they do. So you know that bicycles, when they're on the road, are governed by the rules of the road. They have the same rights and responsibilities as a vehicular driver or a vehicle does. And so with scooters, they just kind of piggyback onto the piggyback and said, scooters have all the rights and responsibilities on the road that a bicycle does, which means scooters have all the rights and responsibilities that a vehicle does. So if somebody is riding a scooter down the road and they're drinking a beer, that's actually DUI. Not saying you should go out and prosecute it, but it is prosecutable for the same reason that riding a bike, drinking a beer. Running a stop sign on a scooter can get a ticket, same as if you're driving a vehicle. So I think that's good information to know, which at least helps us consider the scale of the issues that we're dealing with, to know what things can law enforcement enforce as law enforcement against the operator of those micro-mobility devices.
They're like the Lime ones in Orlando, except they're a lot more
You don't
bulky.
have to send me a picture now. I can.
They're more bulky though than the Limes. Yeah.
Yeah, easy to get a picture. They get left in the lot all the time.
Yeah, Rick just showed me, but I can envision it now. I wasn't sure if you were talking about something bigger than what I was talking about, than what I was thinking of, but no, I got it.
Yeah, the issue that I brought to Drew was about speeding and about ignoring the rules. A woman called me that two incidents, one that occurred to her, that she almost hit one at night because it didn't have lights on. And the other one that she saw a woman stop at the stop sign. Three of these guys came up behind her, thought she was stopped at the stop sign for too long, and whizzed around her, not like crept around her, but whizzed around her, whereas if she had started to go, she would have hit them.
But they're very careless on them. It's like they're racing each other. It's the boys that appear to be between 14 and 20, and they're aggressive on them. They're racing each other. They're being boys. I mean, it's just they don't realize how they can be killed, you know.
I've yet to hear any positives.
Well, you didn't want it from the get-go.
I didn't want them from the get-go. So the problem is gonna be, you're gonna have kids riding, they're unskilled. And then the minute we pull them over, it's gonna be an attitude. We really want to get caught up in writing 12-year-old tickets. The other part is you're gonna give them to people at night without lights that have been drinking. Is there a way that we can not allow them to rent those scooters in our city?
Absolutely. No, you can ban them. You can ban them from operating.
I just don't see anything good happening from these things at all.
It's not like we have.
Someone's going to make money off of it, but I think kids whizzing around on two wheels that are not trained on two wheels on power is just not a good idea for them.
And they're not going 20 miles.
No. And we don't have large sidewalks either. I mean, in our core area where where all the kids are hanging out.
The feedback that I have received on them from our locals, not one positive. The folks visiting, day trippers, all that, the novelty of it's great. The kids that are bored out of their mind because they got dropped off in the morning, they don't get picked up till the evening. That are, they scan it, put it on mom or dad's credit card, and then they just go and destroy them and each other in the process. But I don't know. I don't know any. I have yet to get one positive feedback from a person that lives here.
Aside from the rentals, if we could easily ban that kind of a business.
Well, it's not so much banning the business, but you can ban the electric scooters.
Well, okay.
Okay,
so that would.
Or the micromobility device is really the. I did on my phone. That's what the micromobility device is.
Right.
Does that mean that my mother can't buy me one?
No, that's why I was making that clarification that term micromobility device, that means a bicycle or scooter that I use my cell phone to rent off of that.
Right.
That's really how that's
You download the app, and then, but I mean, too.
So we'd be banning that type of business. And you could just say no scooters. If you want to allow bicycles in that type of business, but not scooters, we can do that too.
But my mother can still buy me one for Christmas.
Yes.
Right, because, for instance, as an example, like Sydney has a little, nothing like what these are. It's a little electric thing that she can run around the driveway. That would not be there. Or would it?
No. Okay. I mean, you can regulate where those things are operated. So I guess theoretically you could, but that's why I keep on saying really what you're talking about is the micromobility devices, the things that you rent, not the things that
we're supposed to be a walking community anyway, so I don't see the real advantage of having a scooter other than the recreational type thing that just went around. It discourages walking around if you have scooters all over the place and operated by non-groups.
Somebody's gonna get hurt. I've almost smacked a couple of them because they just, not with my hand, but like driving. You're just driving down the street and they just go right across the.
I've not seen one yet stop or stop.
I've almost been killed and almost killed one.
So what I'm hearing is we'll still have your ordinance come back for second reading, and then it sounds like we'll take no action on that. And it sounds like I'm putting together an ordinance that actually prohibits micromobility scooters or scooters and bikes. Is this the scooters you want to tackle right now?
I'd say just the scooters. I visited a city and they had the bikes, and the bikes are great. You're pedaling just as fast. It's like renting a bike from business.
E-bikes?
No, it was a regular bike.
No, I mean, is it so? foot-powered scooters, foot-powered bicycles, is it the e-scooters? Is it just e-scooters or all scooters? And then is it the E, or is it, so would you also want to include e-bikes?
Yes.
Yes.
As they can be just as irresponsible on that as they can.
And that's renting of just the e-bikes, or they could
Or
own them?
micro-mobility.
Okay.
Just a rental.
Yeah.
Renting.
Okay, I think I've got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Rick took away all my thunder.
Yeah, really? Wow. Well, I do have one thing. So back at Christmas time, remember Johnny and the boys from Tortugas? They put in all that effort to light the pier and try to do other things. And Johnny Lucherai had talked to someone at FPL, and he had found out about this program they have about cities putting Christmas decorations on their power poles on A1A. And Johnny found out, I guess, that this was a program they were discontinuing, but you could get in on it if you signed up and brought back this contract, which it was we were told was at no cost. There was no cost wrote out in the contract that I can see. And the mayor signed it because the intent was, hey, this is going away. We need to do it while we can. Well, we received a bill from FPL, and we will get this bill every month for $159.21, and we never installed not one decoration on their pole. It's for the privilege of wanting to do it. There is a termination clause in this, and it's just notice within 10 days by either party to terminate the agreement. And I'm just wanting to know if you want me to pay this $159 every month or terminate it.
Wow, is that unreal?
I think all good intention was there. It just was rushed and not researched enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure, one more.
Chief. Last but not least, right? First, I really appreciate y'all listening to Melissa's thoughts about opening the library and approving that plan, because she put a lot of time and effort, and as well as having Bob Snyder here and following the advice of him and Dr. Bickle as it comes to events. So, from the safety team, thank you for listening to the subject matter expert on that. And, a couple other things. One, Monday here, City Hall, 6 to 7:30. Detective Mitch is putting on a fraud prevention class, free to the public. We'll probably put on 2 or 3 of those a year to the members of our community to be victims of fraud. So that's an education program.
Say 6 to 7.
6 to 7:30. She's actually going to show you how easy it is to whitewash a check.
Wow.
That's how she's going to do it right in front of us.
Right.
It's a
And I'm
craziest
gonna-
magic trick ever.
Yeah.
The second one is
The last
April.
time I bought checks from Intuit,
Right.
they sent a special pen.
Right. But if you don't use the right pen, you can whitewash a check with acetone from Dollar General in less than 15 minutes. She's going to show you how easy it is for fraudsters to do that. Then the second one is April 24th, so Saturday, is our drug take back day for prescription pills that we partner with DEA. So the police department front lobby will be open from 10 to 2. And because we have the COVID fatigue, we're going to put a new wrinkle on it this year. For those members of our community that either can't make it out or afraid to make it out, we're going to actually come and pick up prescriptions from people's houses.
Wow.
All they're going to have to do is contact our records clerk up until Friday before, and your chief of police is going to come out on the day off and pick up prescription pills and bring it back so we can use those.
That will definitely help out some of the folks that are older and can't get out.
Right, so again, small town, that's what Flagler Beach is all about. And last but not least, congratulations on your 40th anniversary.
Thank you, Chief.
Longer than a jail sentence.
Could have killed him and been out by now. That's what I
I know
say.
you got to
All right, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep. You got a second.
No.
40 years on a first conviction, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Where we going now? Oh, my goodness.
Every year it goes like this. I know my blood pressure goes crazy every year, but this year.
Stuff to do, like,
Yeah.